Ladies, gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome back to another episode of The Lost. I am Shad. I'm always Shad. I don't know what that was. But he's Razor.
Yeah, yes.
And we're continuing our odyssey in chilly waters, cold waters, sub-zero waters, you could say.
The kind of waters you have to make a boat out of ice to navigate.
Mm-hmm. Very handy for them blood seas. So, last time, I believe that we had gone all the way up through Armageddon. Which brings us to the new timeline.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, before we talk about MK9, we already sort of skimmed over Shaolin Monks. But I think for Sub-Zero in particular, it's important because the things they do to him to change his story in 9 sort of are influenced by Shaolin Monks. Where, like, Shaolin Monks was the first time where when he comes to Outworld during MK2, his goal has nothing to do with finishing his brother's mission of assassinating Shang Tsung. This is the first time that
They kind of shifted it over towards, what the hell happened to my brother?
Yeah, they just cut the assassinate Shang mission part out and went straight to find out who killed my brother and get revenge, which is actually not... It doesn't really have anything to do with the original MK2 Sub-Zero plot. Like, as we said last episode, he wasn't really out to get revenge on Scorpion. Like,
that was a mission of finding out what the hell happened.
Revenge isn't really how Kuai Liang rolls. But it is now, I guess. So you kind of have to deal with that.
I can see that as being a mandate from the leaders of the clan, the Grandmaster. You know, no one kills one of us, you go kill them instead.
I mean, if
honestly,
they had written it that way, I'd be fine with it, but...
The entire notion of being out to assassinate Shang Tsung went out the window for both Bi-Han and Kuai Liang in 9.
The thing is, Shaolin Monks, MK vs. DC, and MK9 all sort of present Sub-Zero's MK2 mission as him leaving the clan. Like, he just walked out to do this thing without permission, and the cyber initiative has already started. Usually, like, there are references in Shaolin Monks and vs. DC to like Sektor and Cyrax already existing as robots and maybe already hunting him.
Yeah, Shaolin Monks kind of like clusterfucked both 2 and 3 as far as Sub-Zero goes into a very short, concise time span.
There's always some subtle reference when he runs into the heroes where he's like, my own clan is hunting me now. And that's all you get. Like, he doesn't specifically talk about robots, but that's sort of where it started in terms of the changes 9 makes to the story.
I suppose that they never really figured that there was much of a time gap to be considered during the from the end of 2 up to the beginning of 3, or it's just a matter of them hyper-condensing stuff to save time.
Yeah, it kind of feels lazy to me to compress things that way. Because it was kind of an important part of the story that Sub didn't really know what was up until he comes home from Outworld.
Yeah.
Walks in the door, surprise, robots.
No, like, it made it seem more like an odyssey and less like a bunch of things happening at once, so... Yeah, I'm in that same boat where I found it kind of disappointing.
Yeah. So anyway, for Kuai Liang, MK9 starts with basically him and Smoke coming to the second tournament, uninvited,
Unwanted.
To investigate the death of Bi-Han. Specifically, they know he's dead because Sektor and Cyrax were at the tournament. They came home and said so, but apparently Sektor refused to tell them who the killer was and how it happened. So Kuai Liang decides, and this MK9 is the first time they introduced that his code name used to be Tundra, which was...
Yeah.
Before that, that was a cutting room floor thing. Like, when they were developing MK1, Johnny Cage was almost called Michael Grimm, and Sub-Zero was almost called Tundra.
That's a fucking twisted metal name if ever I heard one.
Grimm with 2 M's.
Michael Grimm. That actually might be someone's name. No, Mr. Grimm. That's what I'm thinking of from Twisted Metal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I
suppose
so
maybe Sektor...
they decided... They took that little Easter egg and turned it into an actual canon thing. Which I think is interesting because I always imagine Kuai Liang as like a rookie, like he's sitting at the base waiting for his turn to be Sub-Zero. Like that's kind of how the Sub-Zero name works because it's passed on from generation to generation. But I think Kuai Liang is a little older in MK9 than he was in the old timeline. Like he seems more experienced, like he's been on missions and he's actually living the assassin life. And I talked about last episode my opinion that his whole reluctance to kill and his sort of resistance to the indoctrination of the Lin Kuei way of life implies that he's still a rookie, that he hasn't had obedience beaten into him yet.
I mean, how old would you give John Turk? I'd say early 30s.
I suppose so. I mean, we know that Bihan was 32 when he died. Like, MK1 had actual ages in the bios. And Kuai Liang is the younger brother. I always imagined that he was maybe somewhere between 2 and 5 years apart. So he could be like 27 or something. 28, 29, 30. Somewhere in that ballpark. But
I'd call that probably past the age where you're less open to murdering people, and I don't know, 27 seems to be kind of a average age for an assassin. Like, in these kind of situations, typically once you hit like the mid-30s and 40s, I guess you're looking at retirement.
sure. There's also a thing in the lore that's introduced in mythologies that says that normally cryomancers have to train all their life to get as good as Sub-Zero is. Like, they're an old man by the time that they master the deep freeze, and Bihan is actually a prodigy. So maybe Kuai Liang is just as prodigious, but maybe he does learn a little slower than his brother, because I like to imagine that Bihan was sort of this standard of excellence that he was trying to live up to, and he doesn't get there until like MK4. I think I talked about it before too, with the like what it means that his arms are frozen all the time and that sort of thing. And like
I'd say that
the
roundabout
techniques that you get in mythologies that never show up in any other game, like the polar blast.
I'd say that by around MK4 is when he's starting to really hit his stride because of the freezing arms specifically.
Yeah. I mean, Kuai Liang does have... Bihan never does the ice clone in the fighting games, but he does have it in mythologies.
Well,
so I don't know if I can call that a Kuai Liang technique or not.
I've never really dug that far deep into it, but I just, aside from the fact that it only showed up in MK3 mythologies was after, if you really wanted to, you could look at it as the fact that, during the MK1 tournament, he didn't feel he'd need it. Quick in and out assassin mission.
But yeah, I think the Tundra code name is an interesting addition, but I can take or leave it overall.
It's good. I would prefer to keep it because Tundra kind of implies cold plains, not freezing cold plains, not Arctic, but
it's not Sub-Zero.
it's pretty
He's still
chilly.
Slightly above zero.
It's still getting there. That's why I enjoy it.
You're working on it. It's.
I suppose
well, the thing about MK9 that I want to mention is there were these little animated bios before the game came out that they put on their YouTube page.
Yes, I recall those.
And how canon these little animations are is very up for debate. because there's a lot of stuff shown in them that doesn't really match. Like, in the Melina one, there's a brief shot of her with Baraka blades in her arms.
Someone done
during the
fucked
part
up
where
there.
they're talking about the Tarkatan DNA that went into creating her. And that's weird.
I'm guessing early concept for a total Melina redesign that they just thought was a bit too radical.
Yeah.
But still managed to slip in because, they don't take these things as seriously as we do.
Right. So the reason I bring it up, though, is that in the Sub-Zero one, they actually change his backstory. Like, the backstory we all know is that his dad was a Lin Kuei named Sub-Zero, who took him and his brother from their mom, and they ran away and joined the clan. So
that's the mythology's version.
The video for MK9, the promotional animation thing, said that the Lin Kuei abducted the brothers from their parents. Plural. It kind of implied that they were going for wiping out the fact that the Sub-Zero name is a legacy, so that like it was just Bi-Han's name, and Kuai Liang took it just to honor his brother, not because it was the family tradition, which fortunately is no longer something we need to worry about by MK11 because
they
there
talk
are
about
intros that reference
their
grandfather was also called Sub-Zero, and so like if there was an attempt to retcon that, it has been unretconned.
MK9 was the game where they just decided, okay, let's just do this all over again. No one's gonna care, and then they found out that people did care.
Well, MK9 occupies this weird, dumb space of trying to be a reboot and a sequel at the same time, and it just doesn't work. Like, there's other weirdness in the game. Like, they never mention the phrase White Lotus Society even once in the entirety of 9.
Yeah, that was odd. But
but yeah, so at this point in 9, it's like fuzzy whether the Sub-Zero name is just Bi-Han's name, or if it's like their grandfather and great-grandfather and like runs in the family. But
there's a lot of things from MK9 that I think got kind of soft reversed.
Yeah,
that's probably one of them. There was
like I think because there was a lot of negative reaction from people on the forums like myself to their attempts to retcon things out, then by X and 11 they decided to stop trying and just stick with the fucking lore as it is. Because you don't fix what ain't broken.
Well, for the most part, you were victorious, so I hope you're happy.
Yeah,
I'm generally pretty happy.
We'll get to this when we get to X, but I consider a lot of things a victory on my part when it comes to Sub-Zero's portrayal.
Okay, don't cough your organs up, patting yourself on the back there, but I agree with the sentiment. You mentioned how Sektor didn't actually tell them that Scorpion under Quan Chi's influence was responsible for
like
Sub.
when they show up in Outworld and Sub and Smoke are talking to each other about why they're there, he's like, it's a shame that Sektor wouldn't tell us who did it. Like, is that just Sektor being a dick, or did the clan specifically not want Kuai Liang to go avenge his brother?
I'm leaning towards the second one there because, Sektor was in bed with Quan Chi. Like, X gave us that.
That's true. I think it's more like the clan wants you here because we're about to start the robot shit. Don't go anywhere. Don't leave and avenge your brother.
It's a couple of reasons. There's that, and I don't think that they wanted him fucking up any of Quan Chi's plans, finding out the truth, inconveniencing them, Sektor had his own agenda, as we know.
Well, that would imply that, like, both Sektor and the Grandmaster are totally okay with, like, Sub-Zero being fucking killed.
Well, yeah.
Because, like, Bi-Han was their best guy. Like, that's actually kind of a thing where, like, the Grandmaster actually trusted him more than his own son. Like, you're our best assassin. You are the shining jewel of this entire fucking shit show.
Well, at the very least, I can totally believe that Sektor wanted him out of the way.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
It's a total, like, jealousy thing. I have to use these fucking rockets on my arms, and this guy gets to free shit with elemental powers, you
I
know?
like that's something I wish had been portrayed, like Sektor being jealous of Bihan. I think that would have added some really good characterization.
It's all about how you look at specific character archetypes, and Sector is totally like the whiny, snooty little prep school guy, as we've talked about, you know?
For me, what it goes back to is the fact that the like Sub-Zero versus Sector rivalry is totally Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow from G.I. Joe. Like, it's obvious that's where Tobias was getting it from. And in G.I. Joe, the entire reason Storm Shadow is a bad guy is because he was the master of his clan's son, and Snake Eyes was adopted. And Snake Eyes was sort of the favored of the two to take over the clan. And he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I'm your son." This fucking outsider, you gonna hand it to him?
Who's Zartan in this scenario, I wonder? Who fires the arrow? Okay, though.
But yeah, so Sub and Smoke come to Outworld. And they immediately decide to split up and look for Shang Tsung. Like, they figure they can cover more ground that way, I guess. They're looking for Shang because, you know, it was his tournament. He can tell them who killed Bihan.
Sensible, reasonable assumption.
Right. And Smoke immediately gets himself into trouble, fights Katana, acts like a douchebag.
Beats Shang Tsung and Kano simultaneously.
Yeah. Well, Shang Tsung, Kano, and Reptile.
This is canon. Not everything that 9 gave us is bad.
Smoke is kind of a badass.
You don't fuck with him. You just don't.
He's not bright, but he's a badass.
just point him in the right direction. He's like Rain for the good guys. He's a useful idiot.
Right.
Bless his soul.
But yeah, so on their two separate paths, looking for Bihan's killer, they both run into the cyberized Sektor and Cyrax, who've caught up with them. In Sub-Zero's case, it's Cyrax. We see Sub-Zero has found his way to the Soul Chamber, which I guess is in Shao Kahn's castle? I'm not exactly sure where the Soul Chamber is supposed to be, but that seems like a good guess.
Like, I've always figured that it's in the bowels of Shao Kahn's fortress, and the way that MK3 portrayed things was that the realms were in the midst of merging, so that's why when you go from the Soul Chamber just up above to the balcony area.
Yeah, like the balcony is above that, and the balcony is almost definitely part of the castle.
You got like Motaro statues here and there, and
yeah,
in the background you can see like what kind of look like standard street lights, so things are kind of shifting and changing, but
well, I think those are like a whole bunch of candles just set up, like some kind of like.
I have to go look back at it because I always thought that they were just like street lights and it was dark. I'll see.
They definitely look like candelabras to me.
Anyway,
but yeah, so Sub-Zero has found himself in the Soul Chamber, and he's freezing a guy who looks an awful lot like Kratos.
Yes. You have to tilt it off to the side and actually see that bit.
He's saying stuff like, "It's a shame you couldn't have cooperated." Like Kratos would really know who was at the first tournament. It's a shame you didn't have the answers to my questions. Now I have to put you in a block of ice for no reason.
Is it how to kill a god? Is it how to miss your family? Can't help you otherwise.
And then Cyrax comes in. And he's surprised, but he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do the robot thing. Fuck off, bro."
Nope.
And he knocks him out.
You're coming with me. Clunk. Donk.
I think...
Down.
No, he beats up Cyrax, so Cyrax just teleports away. Possibly because Cyrax sensed that he was about to be outnumbered, because then Sonya and Jax walk in the room. Because they were tracking... They got some kind of technology signal, which was Cyrax. And instead of fighting him, they find Sub. And they're the ones who tell him that Scorpion killed Bihan. And you can find Scorpion at the arena, which is a weird thing for them to know because Scorpion hasn't been at the arena this entire time. Like, Scorpion hasn't shown up during the MK2 part at all yet.
Conveniences. Here, wait. Let me go and look at the actual script while you're recounting this. What does it actually say? So that's a pretty strange, specific thing to take note of.
I'm pretty sure, because that's how Sub-Zero ends up at the arena after this scene, because what happens next is Ermac comes out of the soul chamber, and he's like, "You're disturbing my sleep, what the fuck?" And he attacks them. And he blows up Jax's arms.
So he sleeps there.
Yeah. His regeneration process.
I mean, it makes sense.
I suppose. And, so Sonya cauterizes Jax's arm wounds, and he's like, "Help me take him back to Earthrealm to get healed." And Sub-Zero's like, "I'm fucking busy. The portal's that way." And Sonya's like, "You fucking dick."
Here it is. He was killed by someone named Scorpion. Where would I find him? Try the Colosseum. That's where... And she's just cut off by Ermac showing up.
So you could just assume that he's going to show up, Sonya thinks.
Yeah, he's... Shao Kahn hangs out there. Maybe he'd know. Why not
Yeah.
ask the Beneficent Overlord? I'm sure it'll be helpful.
You know what? That guy was at the last tournament. Maybe he'll be at this one. But yeah, so Sub-Zero does that. He goes to the arena.
Okay, like, did you have as much of a problem with Sub walking away from cauterizing Jax as I did? So
I guess he figured that, I mean, dude'll be okay. Got those wounds closed. He's not bleeding out anymore. He's gonna make it.
He does tell them where the nearest portal is. At least there's that.
Yeah. I mean, it does bother me a little bit, but it's sort of like... I mean, if he did take them back to Outworld, look, Sonya and Jax are out for the rest of the MK2 tournament. That's just it for them. So if Sub-Zero had gone with them, he wouldn't have come back in time to do any of the things he's supposed to do. So really, it's a problem of engineering Sub-Zero to be in this situation in the first place. Like, you could have written...
You don't want him to be...
anything else.
You don't want him to be too much of a bleeding heart, I guess, because he is an assassin, and he does have things to do.
Well, yeah, I think... So one of my problems with it is that they mention the portal, and then we don't get to see the portal, and the portal's my favorite stage, so I'm real salty about it not being in 9 at all.
Well, he said there's a portal. It might not be the
like,
portal.
honestly, the scene where fucking Smoke and Sub-Zero first show up should have been at the portal, not the wasteland.
Dude, Portals is probably its own lost episode, man.
Yeah, like, their dialogue is like, "We just got here, what do we do next?" Not, "We got here an hour ago and we've been walking and now what do we do next?"
Trees sure are creepy around here.
It's just, I don't know.
And, okay.
But, yeah, so, on the subject of Kuai Liang being a little too callous and assassin-y in the MK9 version of events, what happens when he gets to the arena is that he demands to face Scorpion in the tournament, and Shao Kahn is obvious like, "Who the fuck are you to make demands of me?" and makes him fight Reptile. and we both talked about how we always assumed that Reptile was the guy he fought before Scorpion, and he spares his life, and that's how Scorpion knows he's the wrong guy.
There's the scenario. It's right there. It's perfect.
And that totally happens. But there's this bit of dialogue after Sub beats Reptile that kind of bugs me, where he says, "I would kill you, but that's not my purpose here."
Yep, I'm looking at that script right now.
And I feel like, look, maybe he's just trying to put up a tough guy front when he says that. But just, "I would kill you, but," is not words I want to hear Kuai Liang saying. I don't think that's in character.
You don't think that we've softened him up in our headcanon too much over the years?
It's possible, but I'd also like to believe that, like, that's how Tobias saw it. This is a good guy. He just needs to get away from the clan.
No,
Whereas
I hear you on
MK9's
that.
version is definitely very gray area with him. Very...
I'd like to think it's a tough guy act. I would.
It could be. I don't know. I think it's a subtlety that they could have done better with. And I think that, like, overall, just the fact that he does fight a guy before Scorpion and lets him live, I ought to be going, that's good enough. Like, how much can I expect from MK9?
Well, the very next thing Scorpion says is, "You're not Sub-Zero." So at the very least, he's like, Bihan would have stepped on this.
Thing.
Bihan
like,
would have stepped on this guy's throat. So that line is, I guess, them trying to push the MK2 life-sparing.
I don't know. Like, it's very lip servicey. It's very shallow. Because what bugs me about it is that Scorpion wasn't in the room at the time. Like, he doesn't go, "You're not Sub-Zero," because he saw him spare Reptile. He goes, "You're not Sub-Zero," because he teleports in, looks at his face, and immediately can tell.
Maybe he was up in the rafters watching? Yeah.
I don't know. I doubt it.
When things don't work, I tend to squish them and make them work.
Well, because what follows next, the dialogue is like, "You're not him, but I'll fucking kill you anyway if you want to fight."
He had no honor, and you will
like,
die
there's definitely no thought in Scorpion's head of a vow of protection in this timeline. It's just
you're wearing his fucking
for
clothes.
A second occur to him. And it's mostly because this Scorpion is just straight up working for Quan Chi. Like, he only shows up because Quan literally summoned him magically. Like, you see Quan Chi lift his hand and call Scorpion into the room.
People just
and Scorpion pops up and he's like, "What's going on? What do you need me to?" Who's this fucking guy? All right, if I gotta fight, I'll fight.
Everyone's
and
angry
that's it. That's the whole thing. Like, he just works for Quan Chi in this timeline, and that's fucked up.
Maybe the original timeline caught everyone on a really good day. I'm trying here, man. I'm trying.
I don't know. I don't buy. Did we already talk about this in the Scorpion episode, that I don't see him as working for Quan Chi in the old timeline? I see him as a guy who Quan Chi went, "You want to kill this guy, I want this guy dead, I'm setting you free to do it."
Well, as with many things, the new timeline, especially 9, kind of forced Quan Chi down our throats a little bit.
Yeah,
and they know that, so I figured...
Well, look, there are times in the original trilogy where Quan Chi showing up would have been a valid choice. I just, like, Scorpion is supposed to be more mercenary than employee. That's just it.
I think you can round it, like, down that way. In the original timeline, he's on a much, much longer leash, even if there is such a thing.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway.
Yeah, we know what happens next.
Yeah, so I talked about this last episode. In the original timeline, Scorpion wins this fight and then lets him live and walks away, and Sub-Zero is confused, like, what the fuck just happened? But in this version of events, Sub-Zero wins and is then prevented from finishing the job by Sektor and Cyrax showing up and abducting him. And Shao Kahn is like, "Who are these intruders? Why does this keep happening?" And Sektor and Cyrax are like, if you let us take him, we'll work for you in the future. Like, we'll pledge the Lin Kuei's loyalty to Shao Kahn." And
I like in this scene, Raiden's like, "Smoke, you can't save him. If you stay here, or they will take you. I've seen that. Maybe he can do better than you did." No, he's not.
I mean, so here's this scene is the ultimate distillation of all the things I hate about MK9. Because the first thing is you have Raiden just standing there watching and saying, "There's nothing we can do." When we saw, when he saved Smoke earlier, that all it takes is a single lightning bolt to take out all of the cybers at once.
Yep.
But Raiden's justification is that if we interfere, Shao Kahn will fuck us up. Raiden is afraid of Shao Kahn. Now, Raiden's job in every single previous version of this story is literally to make sure that the rules of the tournament are enforced. He has authority higher than whoever the Grandmaster of the tournament is, be it Shang or Shao Kahn. And he's there to make sure that they play by the rules.
Are we sure that that applies for Shao Kahn's tournament as well?
Yes, because the Elder Gods are fucking watching. Because we see the golden light shine on Liu Kang when he wins.
Okay. Fair enough.
So, Sub-Zero is an Earthrealm fighter. And he's about to win a sanctioned tournament match. And that fight is interfered with.
Well,
that is absolutely against the rules of Mortal Kombat. There is nothing more against the rules than that.
He did win it. Scorpion was
down. If Raiden stepped forward and said, no, fuck off, Shao Kahn would have to sit there and take it. By the authority of the fucking Elder Gods. But Raiden goes, no, I don't want to. I'm kind of scared of him right now.
The match might have been considered over. Scorpion was down. Everything else, politics.
Yeah, Scorpion was down. Sub-Zero had already won the fight, which means Sub-Zero advances to the next round, which is important for Earthrealm in the tournament.
Well, tournament rules. We know that they've never actually been very strictly defined.
It's just so egregious.
I mean, this goes back to MK1. What kind of tournament rules let you wind up with 7 people remaining? What happened there?
Well, you have to imagine there was an 8th person, and he died and won it. Like, these are just the 7 who didn't eat a fatality. That's all.
Wait, I know. It was Nightwolf, and he let Scorpion win. See? It all makes sense. Alright. So, we don't see Sub for a little while.
Well, there is... Because I said there's multiple things about this scene that bother me. The other thing that I hate about it is that it has Sektor and Cyrax pledging their loyalty to Shao Kahn, so that when we get to MK3, they won't be a free faction who fights the Outworlders too. They'll just be more members of the army, because that just... We only have 2.5 hours for cutscenes. We need to cut things down for time. It's just incessant shallowing of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who had their own subplot is just... It's cut away, and they're made a member of Team A or Team B.
To save time, to hyper...
It really bothers me.
Hyper condensation of storyline. It's...
And then the third thing that bothers me, obviously, is that, you know, this is how he becomes Cyber Sub-Zero, and Cyber Sub-Zero is the dumbest fucking idea in the game, but we're getting there.
Well, I don't know about that.
Second dumbest. I
don't like it because...
a huge problem with Sindel's backstory in this game.
Okay, the Sindel thing and the tournament rules and the tournament being a front for nothing, that's my biggest dumb thing.
Yeah.
Cyber Sub-Zero I dislike because it's schlocky and easy. You know, it was just done.
Yeah,
it was done as a what a twist moment, and that's why I dislike it.
The problem is the fundamental idea of switching Sub-Zero and Smoke's places has promise if you then do things with Smoke.
You're not gonna find me disagreeing here.
But they literally do nothing. Like, it just shits on both character stories. Instead of giving them different ones, it just erases them.
But we got sadsmoke.jpg. That's worth a lot. That's worth so much, man.
So yeah, we don't see Sub-Zero again until the middle of the invasion.
And speaking of being able to beat people that these Lin Kuei motherfuckers have no business being able to beat. Oh god, motherfucker takes out like Kintaro and Goro, I think.
Well,
or was it Kintaro and Shiva?
Before we get to that fight,
that was hilarious.
Yeah. So Cyber Sub, the first time we see him is during Cabal's chapter. So Cabal has gone through being burned, and Kano gives him his gas mask, and then he tries to assassinate Shao Kahn, which is true to his MK3 bio, so at least they made an attempt there. But, I mean, he doesn't really put a lot of effort into the attempt to kill Shao Kahn, he just kind of walks towards the throne, and then Malina and Noob Saibot go, "What the fuck?" and chase him away.
A lot of tag team battles happening.
See, he runs through a portal back to Earthrealm, and when he gets to Earthrealm, he is attacked by Cyber Sub-Zero. And so he knocks Cyber Sub out, and then Raiden and Smoke just kind of walk in from off screen, and they're like, "Oh, hey, that's our friend. Maybe we can save him." And fucking...
Unit LK520.
Right. Actually, it's 5-2, the letter O.
Whatever.
So my problem with this is that, like, look, in the original MK3, Sub-Zero put effort in to rescue Smoke. Like, you have to imagine there was a scene where the two of them fight each other, and Sub is going, like, "Remember who you are. Remember our friendship." You know, like that Defenders of the Realm episode that I like. But in this version, Smoke has nothing to do with the rescuing of Sub-Zero. He's just there after the fact. Like, he walks in after Sub has already been defeated. And Jax does all the reprogramming, and Smoke he's literally just, there's like no emotion to this. There's no gravitas.
Well, he asks him how he feels.
Yeah, there's a brief moment between them to remind the audience, hey, these two are friends.
Let's be fair. This is more than like Jax and Jax. This is more than Guile and Charlie got in Street Fighter V after 20 years of hype. No,
I will grant that.
My
that
friend,
is true.
No. Continues wearing glasses and having no expression.
Guile in 5, man, just
could actually be played.
Prow and squat over top of his head.
Could actually be played by a broom. You could have put a military jacket on that broom. No one would have noticed. Jesus fuck. Anyway. So
yeah, I just wish that, like, Smoke had been the one.
No, me too.
To fight Cyber Sub, you know.
But then
That's
you have.
all.
See, a lot of this comes from the fact that they don't want to have, I don't think, other people apart from, like, the classics, the Johnny's, Sonya's, and Liu Kang's, in a starring role. Everyone else is second stringers, and you can't really give them too much time in the spotlight. And I think it's pretty fucking dumb.
I think my problem with that is their perception of who is first string and who's not, because I give way more of a shit about Smoke than I do about Sonya Blade. Like, when I think about vanilla MK3, to me, the main characters are Liu Kang, Sub-Zero, and Smoke.
Well, I wouldn't say you're wrong, but, like, MK3 is like this ensemble cast, you know, like, everyone,
well, sure, yeah, but I don't give a shit about any of it.
Everyone has a part to play. Even like
I'm going by which ones I find the most interesting and which ones are sort of the most obviously, like, doing something and out there in front. Like, when you look at the like the attract screen, the demo, you get like a shot of Liu Kang and Kung Lao, and then you get a shot of Sonya and Jax chasing Kano. And then you get a shot of Liu Kang and the Cybers. Or, I mean, Sub-Zero and the Cybers. And, like, look, that Sonya Jax Kano screen is really superfluous. That doesn't have anything to do with anything. The main plot is Liu Kang versus Shao Kahn, and the most important B-plot is Sub-Zero.
Well, this is what becomes of B-plots when you've got a movie. They're relegated to the sidelines. If there aren't B characters, they're probably Nightwolf, Striker, Cabal. That's basically it. Everyone else is like C-list.
It bothers me, man.
Didn't say it doesn't bother me, but we've had two games that have more or less made up for it. Not made up for it, but rectified.
Like, MK1 can be a movie. Like, it's pretty 3-act structure-y. MK2 and 3 really ought to be seasons of a TV show.
No lies detected.
And I think that's sort of my problem with fighting game story modes is you have all these people who are praising it just for existing, like just because they've never seen the effort put in before in a fighting game to having like elaborate cutscenes. Like before MK9, the best story mode you could get from a fighting game was still images and text. It would be the same format, like screens, fight, screens, fight, screens. Like Bloody Roar did that.
Guilty Gear was a lot like that in story
Yeah,
mode.
Guilty Gear does that. There's a lot of games that still do that. They're usually like a budget title thing, like Soul Calibur. Their most recent game had that kind of mode. But MK9 was the first one where instead of stills and text, it was all cutscene all the time. Like full motion video. And a lot of people will give it credit just for existing. The storytelling to me is not up to par with like my lowest. I would rather have the still pictures and text because you usually get more story that way somehow.
It's easy to describe like 3 days worth of activity in 5 paragraphs. It just is. But some people are visual and they prefer it that way in cinematic form. You and I prefer a nice book.
Because you're going the budget route, you have like more room to give screen time to the B and C listers. Everybody gets the same amount.
I don't disagree with you. I wish it was that way too.
And I think like fundamentally a fighting game shouldn't have like tiers of importance in its plot. Like that's the whole point of the character select screen is you pick who you think is the most important.
Yeah, remember, people out there think that even the matter of having story in a fighting game is a concession which doesn't need to be made to be done, and that bothers the shit out of me.
I'm starting to feel that way. Like, not because I don't think the game should have a story, but because I don't think gameplay is the right avenue to tell that story. I think fighting games should come with like
visual novels.
Yeah, like an anime thing. Like Street Fighter 4 did several like little anime shorts instead of having a story mode,
and they were all dumb.
They were dumb because Street Fighter's dumb. If you did that with Mortal Kombat, you get a good story.
I liked Vegas ending where he got in a helicopter and left. That's the good shit right there. So, Cyber Sub-Zero, back to it. Because we need to focus a little bit. So he gets woken
Cyber
up.
Sub gets reprogrammed.
Smoke does get to put a hand on his friend's shoulder. There is that.
Yes, they have a moment, which is better than nothing.
Yes. And he's immediately full of regret for all the things he's done for Shao Kahn.
Which happened entirely off screen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would like to see that. Maybe... Like, did he send him into the temple to kill the younglings? We don't know.
I desire the heads of children.
Like, I kind of like the idea of the invasion has started and Shao Kahn is just like, is that an orphanage over there? You! Burn it down!
So you got Nightwolf asking Raiden how Sub-Zero can help them best, and Raiden's like, I don't know.
Honestly, he shouldn't even be here.
Who's to say that if we recruit him, won't make things worse? I need an adult.
Like, you know that moment in 11 where it's right after Sonya's died and Dark Raiden goes, we should all be so lucky as to have a death in battle like that, and Jackie's like, the fuck? Read the room, bro. This is kind of equal to that to me, where Raiden, right to their faces, goes, I have nothing for him. He shouldn't even exist.
And Stryker...
Kind of a dick thing to say.
And Stryker's like, let's just send him back to Outworld undercover. Stryker is already more useful than Raiden in this scene.
I know, right?
It's wonderful. Huh. They don't know that I'm conscious. I could trick them. Excellent.
You know, I kind of like Stryker being like tactics and plans guy. Like, I wish we got more of that.
I just wish we got more Stryker.
Yeah. Like, MK9 made Stryker really cool, and then they just fucking kill him off. Why did you waste all that time?
Maybe this is why he and Smoke never came back. Because they considered that they made them cool enough that they didn't need to.
That's bullshit.
Yes it is.
Because they made Aaron Black cool and then brought him back. And he was worse the second time.
Anyway, so he heads back into Outworld, and Sektor's like, "You're fucking late." Oh, I killed the intruder.
Yeah, I got him. Don't worry about it. There was nothing left. There's no body. I'm sorry.
We should have. We wanted to interrogate him. He was strong. Didn't have a choice. Okay, we have a new mission now, anyway.
And then they walk through the portal to the subway, and Sub-Zero's like, "What mission brings us here?" And Sektor's like, "The mission of you being a fucking traitor. I can tell." I sensed it immediately, motherfucker. Open your access panel.
The experience has been deleted from your system. Oh my god, what is... Oh, Jesus Christ.
I mean, Stryker's plan was good in theory. But yeah, that whole wireless connection to each other thing kind of... Should have thought of that. Should have thought of the Wi-Fi.
Should have turned his Bluetooth off, bro.
Well, he has two of them.
So, he whoops Sektor, hacks him.
Speaking of Bluetooth, and the visual upgrades to the Cyber Ninja designs in this game, I want to remind everyone that this game takes place in the year, like, 1992.
You're thinking about it too hard again.
I'm just saying.
I don't know. I mean, Cyber Sub always just kind of did like a robot orca. Looked like a robot orca to me. That seems kind of like an early
Cyber
90s
Sub's
reboot.
design is the most Predator they've ever been. Like the ones in MK3 are totally, like, vaguely inspired. And that's mostly just because they have dreadlocks. But in 9, they went, you know what, everybody can tell, let's just go all the way.
Oh my god. See, I hated, like, the partially visible brain and, like...
Oh, man. So I want to talk about that, because we're about to get to the death scene.
Yeah.
So Sub-Zero defeats Sektor, and hacks into him to figure out Shao Kahn's plans. And he finds out that they're taking a whole bunch of hostages to the graveyard.
From Vogel
the clock tower there.
From Vogel University.
Yeah.
This is what it says on screen.
I noticed that they have changed the subway from Boone and Tobias Street to Boone and Barron Street.
And this is why people think that he's just called Noob in the games. Like, saying Saibot means they're open to, like, legal action.
I mean, that's dumb. And obviously they have, you know... Well, so one of the things that bugged me about that was his health bar says Noob, but I'm pretty sure the announcer says Noob Saibot. Meanwhile, Sonya's health bar says Sonya Blade, and the announcer just says Sonya. I just want consistency, that's all.
There's something weird going on there. I don't know what the deal is. Anyway. So Sektor gets hacked. Thanks, Sektor, for the information. And then, you know, we walk in on Kano, kind of tormenting soldiers with his eye laser.
Yeah. Kano, Goro, and Kintaro.
3 people. 2 of them being the strongest Shokans in Outworld. Okay.
I want to point out that, like... Do you feel that this job is appropriate for Goro and Kintaro's status in the army? Do you think this is an example of Shao Kahn shitting on the Shokan because they failed him too many times?
It's... You could squint and look at it like that, but I think it's an event that just kind of happens to fit in with what we acknowledge.
I know that you are a fan of Kintaro being the one who burns Cabal, because it means he gets to do something.
Yes.
But when I look at all the ways Goro and Kintaro are used in MK9, after their important scenes, Goro being the boss of MK1, and Kintaro being the sub-boss of MK2. When I look at all the times they show up after those roles, and how they do fucking nothing, and just get jobbed out, I think to myself, in the old timeline, they were supposed to be dead right now, or faking it. That would have been more respectful.
It could be punishment duty.
They would have better reputations if they had been killed off when they were supposed to be, and had been not in these scenes.
I don't know. In Kintaro's case, especially, I'm like, so Shaolin Monks established that he showed up and then Kung Lao hacked him to bits pretty well.
Yeah, just fucking ripped all his arms off.
And then we'd have MK9 is also establishing that he showed up and got killed at that battle. And, maybe in Mortal Kombat someone has to die, but I wouldn't wish constantly getting killed in the same place to any single character.
Well, for me, it's that old rumor of
Raiden
he fought
being the
Jax
one
and almost killed him, so Raiden attacked and killed him. Because what I like about that is that in the MK2 comic book, there's this rivalry sort of develops between Jax and Kintaro over who's stronger when they fight at the end of the comic. So I like the idea of Kintaro's rival in MK2 being Jack.
I wouldn't say no to it.
But in terms of this scene, so Cyber Sub walks in, and he plays the part of the undercover for like all of 3 seconds, and then he's like, surprise, and freezes Kano.
Well, he freezes Goro and Kintaro.
Yeah,
and then also
he hits
Kano.
everybody in the room with it.
Yes.
But Goro and Kintaro break out first because Shokan are strong.
There's that at least. Gotta sell that upgrade a little bit, but...
Right, so here's the weird thing to me. So he defeats Goro and Kintaro in a 2-on-1 endurance match.
Mm-hmm.
Which should establish that Cyber Sub is like one of the strongest characters in the game, if you think about it. But then when Sindel kills him later, it's a single punch to the chin. Like, it wasn't even a fatality blow. Like, other people get their neck snapped, or their liver ripped out, or their nose palmed into their brain. Sub-Zero dies of a single uppercut.
You've gotta eat your shangos in the morning.
And when you're playing the game, like, the battle damage, his fucking head panel exposes his brain, just flies right off really fucking easy. Like, it takes one hit. So the impression I get from this game is not that Cyber Sub is the strongest, it's that he's the weakest.
You can look at him like Akuma.
Like, Sektor and
Incredibly
Cyrax seem to be pretty well made.
Incredibly powerful.
Cyber Sub is made of fucking tinfoil.
Tinfoil?
He's literally weaker as a robot than he was as a human.
Tinfoil, but with razor fists. Takes a lot of damage, also gives it.
I'm just saying, this is a seriously flawed process in his case, and definitely explains why Quan Chi prefers his Revenant form human better.
Sure, look at it that way. I mean, the comic does give us that. It does.
Were they running out of budget at the Lin Kuei when they got to the third guy?
They ran out of forehead panels.
Wow. It's just... But yeah,
and then he beats Ermac.
Yeah, so he beats Goro and Kintaro at the same time. And then Ermac does his thing, which he does 3 times in this game, where he makes the most extravagant entrance anyone can make. And then he gets jobbed. Like, look how strong I am the most powerful. Oh god, I'm dead.
No, this whole chapter is just them really trying to sell the Cyber Sub upgrade. It's them going, okay, we know people are going to throw a shit fit over this, but just let's just write him as obscenely overpowered, have him win a bunch of matches, have NPCs like the soldiers congratulate him on all of his victories. Just drag it out as long as we can, you know?
It's a little bit like setting someone up to seem like a Mary Sue, and then you swerve them by killing them off.
They knew it wasn't going to go over well. They
and
knew.
I just the philosophy of subversion. You know, the setting something up only to swerve people. I think that is the dumbest form of writing there is.
I mean, we've established MK9's pretty goddamn dumb.
It's super dumb. It is the dumbest game they've ever written.
We're gonna be.
It is by far the dumbest game they've ever written. And yet it's a lot of people's favorites story-wise, which just goes to when a person talks to me and they say that 9 is their favorite story, my immediate thought is then you didn't play the games before 9. 9 was your first.
That's not an unfair assumption to make. It was the first for a lot of people. It did very well.
I mean,
it reinvigorated the series.
I mean, I consider it my job anyway to teach people the lore of the games. But when someone comes up to me and says that 9 is their favorite, or that 9 was their first, I'm basically putting in overtime from that point on. Like, you're now my personal project.
See,
I'm going to fix you.
That's your prerogative. That's fine. And, you know, if 9 is people's favorite, I'm not going to go out of the way. Good for you. But when they tell me 9 is better than MK 1 through 3, story-wise, that's my berserk. I shouldn't care, yet I do. So anyway, I think Cyber Sub was about to take over the entire planet of the apes. So no, he encounters Quan Chi and Noob Saibot, and like Noob's like drawing things on the ground while Quan Chi is starting to get his spell ready to absorb souls.
Yeah, they have to make some kind of burning circle as part of the ritual that will start the Soulnado, which in the original timeline Shao Kahn did. But sure, let's have more Quan Chi scenes.
Quan Chi stole my candy.
I mean,
what
really bothers me about this is that in the old timeline, Quan Chi specifically could not do soul magic. That's the entire reason he formed the Deadly Alliance. He needed Shang Tsung to move some souls for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, this happens.
So yes, we finally get Sub-Zero and Noob Saibot confronting
Yeah, I have to say, this is a good scene, and it is the first time in the history of anything ever where we actually get dialogue between Kuai Liang and Bi-Han. It is the first time on screen in anything the two brothers ever fucking talk to each other.
So yeah, Kano apparently warned them off screen. And
yeah, I guess he broke out of the ice.
Yeah,
a lot of people were kind of confused by that. They thought maybe Kano was dead.
No, Noob Saibot says the one Kano warned about, he's mine.
Yeah.
So he radioed them from behind the scenes, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's the first thing Noob Saibot does. You are not worthy of my goddamn name. And Sub doesn't even know who the fuck this is.
That's what I love about the scene. It gets Noob right. Like, this guy does not love his brother. This guy is just a dick. And he likes being a dick, and he's gonna tell you all about it.
I wore those colors. Those are mine. You're not part of the gang.
Who are you to judge?
And Sub's like, yeah, you can't judge me. We're both flawed copies of what we used to be. And then you get the line, I have no flaws.
You're the one who's worse. I'm better.
It's prime Noob Saibot right here. We share blood. We're not brothers.
I do really like that line. And I like the callbacks to that line. In 11.
You know, you say what you want about 9, but that's a cool fucking scene. And like, if there's a single thing about the game that could go, about the game's story mode that could be considered classic going forward, I'd like to think it's that scene.
The only thing that disappoints me about this scene is that after they fight, And the fight ends inconclusively because Nightwolf shows up to tag in.
Ugh.
I think Kuai Liang should have been the one to knock Bihan into the Soulnado.
But he just won like 8 fights.
And this is another fight he wins.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the fight is interrupted.
You finish him. I don't feel like doing it.
As Nightwolf shows up to be like, your soul is not safe. Get out of here. Like, my shaman magic can protect me, I guess is what he's saying. But, like, the Soulnado is growing bigger, and he doesn't want to get sucked into it.
Really upselling him.
Yeah. So Nightwolf tags in. And he kicks Noob into the Soulnado. And then he fights Quan Chi. Or no, the Soulnado closes. And Quan Chi walks away because his business is done. He just kind of sneaks off. And they go back to their base, which is the church for some reason.
A place of sanctuary?
Well, my problem with it is that when you fight on the church stage, there are shadow priests raising the dead back there. It's obviously a fucking Shao Kahn stage.
Yeah, it always was. Like, I always figured
In
going
the
back
old
to 3,
timeline, there was a Shao Kahn symbol on the floor of that church.
I always figured that that's where Sindel was resurrected.
Yeah, me too. Like, it bugs me that they moved that to the desert, and they put the good guys in the fucking church instead of making a stage for Nightwolf's reservation.
No, plainly the people who were writing the story and settings just didn't know where to have their...
I mean, this is more of that budget stuff. This is more of that we only have 2.5 hours. They didn't have time to make a Nightwolf arena.
Unfortunate.
And they probably never will.
Wouldn't take much.
But anyway.
So Cyber Sub kind of like fades into the background a little bit.
Well, here's the interesting thing to me. So Sindel finds and attacks the base because Sektor and Cyrax found the base. And the reason they found the base is that they tracked Cyber Sub.
Wow.
And this isn't necessarily said outright, but it's pretty goddamned obvious. So, like, Jack's, like, when they're reprogramming the guy, and they're like, we can use him undercover, it didn't occur to anyone that he might have a tracking device built into him? That Sector might be able to GPS the motherfucker?
It's not logic time, it's combat time.
Clearly. So really, like, rescuing Sub-Zero is what gets everybody killed. I mean, that and murdering Motaro, but...
And Sindel eating Shang Tsung. Don't forget that.
Well, I mean, she ate Shang because Motaro was dead. That was her promotion.
Chain of events.
But... it almost feels like the writers are subtly saying, fuck Sub-Zero.
You sure? They let him beat up a bunch of Shokan.
Yeah, but to what end?
Cool factor?
Like, at the end of the day, rescuing Sub-Zero leads the bad guys to the base and gets everybody killed.
It does. It truly does. So we have here the sight of Nightwolf doing all the things.
Yeah, all of the things. Like,
he
a
beats...
huge horde of Cyber Ninjas attacks, and Nightwolf fights Sektor and Cyrax.
He beats
and
Cyrax...
Sindel himself.
He beats Cyrax first, turns around, sees Sektor's handing it to Smoke, and then, just like...
ragdolled. It's fucking sad.
Just, nope. Tomahawk to Sektor's chest. And, yeah. Smoke apparently manages to knock down one random NPC cyborg in the background.
So, like, not only does Smoke not get to rescue Sub-Zero himself, he also doesn't even get to defeat his own personal bad guys.
Terrible.
Everybody's doing the things for him.
The chapter system. Gotta love it.
But yeah, so Sub gets killed by single fucking uppercut.
As does everyone.
I did kind of like when Sindel walks in the room with a scream, and the scream is sort of knocking everybody back like an intense, like hurricane force wind. Nightwolf stands there and takes it unaffected. The only other guy who doesn't fall over is Sub-Zero because he makes a wall out of ice.
I'm reading the MK9 script, and I do have to kind of admire the way he tries to describe all of these deaths. Stryker attacks next, but Sindel dodges his attack, kicks him in the knee, and caves in his lower jaw with a ferocious punch, killing him. Cyber Sub-Zero charges in, but Sindel blocks his attack, punches him across the face, Rabbit punches him, and unleashes a brutal uppercut to his face that destroys his mainframe.
Destroys his main.
And sends his body flying away, sparking as it does so.
It was a fucking uppercut. It hit him in the jaw. Apparently, the jaw is an important part of a cyber ninja anatomy. Like, a critical system.
Attack the weak point for massive damage. So apart from Sub-Zero showing up as a Revenant in cyborg form, down in
Well,
hell.
I want to talk about that for a second, because a lot of people are sort of confused when the Revenants show up when Raiden goes to talk to Quan Chi at the end of 9, that they look the way they did when they died, but the next time we see them, they all have, like, new forms, and Sub-Zero's not a cyborg anymore. That apparently throws people off a little bit. And what I want to explain to the people who are confused by that is that the Revenants we see in 9 aren't actually Revenants yet. Those are just their souls. They haven't been put into bodies yet. Quan Chi's process involves putting your soul into a body that he makes out of that pool of blood in his study, like we see him doing to Johnny Cage in X. And he just hasn't done that to anybody yet, so that's why they still look like they did when they died.
The more you know.
They're just ghosts. And the thing is, in the Nethers have a physical mass and can punch you.
And they are kind of corrupted. They're all, like, gray and cracked and
yeah,
kind
I mean,
of
Quan
vain.
has done his mind control to them. He just hasn't put them in bodies yet. And the way the MKX comic shows him do it to Sub-Zero is different from the way he actually does it in canon. Like, Kittleson got that wrong because he didn't know about the blood pool in the study. Because all he got was a script, he didn't see the cutscenes himself. So, like, in the comic, Quan Chi, like, blows all of his skin and stuff off until nothing's left but the brain and spine, and then he rebuilds a body out of thin air. And that's not how it happens. He uses his blood pool to put their souls into new bodies.
I'm okay with blowing up the body and reconstructing it in thin air. I really am.
I mean, it was a cool scene. I'm just saying that's not canon.
Maybe it's metaphysically reconstructing the soul. Clearing the cybernetic augmentation / corruption.
But anyway,
I like
that.
it. I like it.
That scene where Raiden goes to the Nether Realm to bargain.
Okay, Sub's not even here, man. Let's just.
Yeah.
I know we hate it, but we've covered that. We have covered that over and over in our past episodes. We don't need to.
But that is the last time we see Sub-Zero in MK9.
Yeah.
And we should mention that so Sub-Zero and Cyber Sub on the select screen are two different characters. And in arcade mode, Sub-Zero Human Sub's ending is him and Scorpion forming a team and going after the forces of the Nether Realm. And this is the pretend he didn't die, this is what would happen if he beat Shao Kahn ending. The nice Cyber Sub ending is fascinating to me because Cyber Sub is a blatantly unfinished character. He's the only character in the game other than the DLC who doesn't have a second costume. And his ending has no narration or text at all. It is nothing but pictures. And in those pictures, I guess what it's supposed to be depicting is that after he kills Shao Kahn's soul takes over his body, and he becomes Cyber Shao Kahn, which is just a weird-ass concept.
Someone was hitting the shisha pretty hard.
But yeah, it's just weird to me that they didn't fucking record narration for it. Like, where is the text?
Well, it is... I think that this was around the era where doing that kind of thing via patch still might have been on the tough or tricky side. Maybe they weren't sure if they could or not. They were planning on it. Or they just ran out of time. It's something like that.
It's weird. It's weird. I just think it's funny how obvious it is that Cyber Sub isn't finished. How they released the game with half a character. And it just kind of says to me that, like, was this a last-minute idea? Like, why did they wait so long to build this character? Like, how much of MK9's story was changed during development? Like, did they always have the plan? Like, you would think that story mode has to be set in stone fairly early in development, because cutscene rendering is a long process. And you have to have all the characters' costumes and stuff done before you can do it. But you also have to, like, the script would be one of the first things, wouldn't it?
Theoretically, yeah, but maybe they just look at the endings and whatnot, and they wing that. I mean, MK9's endings were very much a matter of let's wing it, you know? There was not a lot of...
The other thing about, like, Cyber Sub gameplay-wise, and this is probably deliberate, is that his moves are... Like, way back when they made Cyber Smoke, they made him a combination of Scorpion moves, because Spoke had been using Scorpion moves in MK2, and Sektor moves.
Yeah, I'll say that, for as far as Cyber Sub and Scarlet went in this game, they had the right idea. Take a little bit out of the page of Cyrax and, like, Melina, respectively.
Yeah, because, like, Jade used to be a little bit Kitana.
So it goes to show.
And Smoke used to be a little bit Scorpion and Sektor. So now Cyber Sub is borrowing from Cyrax rather than Sektor. He has bombs. And did he have the disassemble teleport? I feel like he had some kind of teleport.
Let me check. I believe he did as well.
I can't remember exactly. The main thing I remember is that giant ice buster sword in his normals.
I remember the broken as shit air X-ray that flew at lightning speed.
Oh yeah, that was. Whenever a character has to execute their X-ray from a jump, it's super obnoxious because, like, there's nowhere that tells you that. So you're mashing L2 and R2 and going, why isn't the X-ray happening? And then you figure, oh, I have to be jumping. It just screws you the first time or two you're playing the character, trying to figure out how they work.
And, yeah, he had a teleport.
There's also the fact that X-ray done from the air have a tendency to whiff really easily.
I have a lot of trouble with them somehow. I always have.
Yeah.
I'm so used to them just coming at me from the ground.
Yeah.
Like, Cyber Sub actually sucked outside of, like, that and, like, the dive kick.
He wasn't very good, but I liked his animations. Like, that's one of the frustrating things to me, is that Cyber Sub's moves kind of looked cooler than regular Sub. Like, he had all of these flippy spin kicks. And I fucking love flippy spin kicks. Like, that's my thing.
Like, okay, look, as soon as I got access to all those retro outfits, I was so happy that they did one for him too. I couldn't use I couldn't use it any other way. I straight up hated the way he looked in 9.
Yeah, no, he was an ugly design. And
also,
honestly, I've always hated the MK9 Cybers in general. Like, I totally only use the retro skins.
I like Tank Sector, and I'm kind of meh about Cyrax.
Sector was the one I liked the best. Like, I think Cyrax is the ugliest character in 9. Like, I hate Cyrax's primary costume in 9.
Well,
And I've had some intense arguments with Cyborg about Cyrax, like how his face looks like a fucking duck.
I can
like that motherfucker used to argue with me saying that he thought Cyrax looked more like MK3 than Sector did, and I'm like, I will throttle you in your sleep.
I don't know about Duck. But one thing that I never enjoyed about any of the cyborgs there was specifically was the fact that I've mentioned this before, but the eyes are the window to the soul, right? I dislike the fact that they gave them all glowing eyes. I actually preferred it when they were dark.
I get that. I kind of like the pane of black glass.
You know?
I kind of like the lit up eyes too, though. Like, I can go either way on it. What bothers me about their designs is that they look like Iron Man suits. Like,
this is very true.
The original Cyber Ninjas had a black bodysuit with sections of armor over it. Like, I want their arms and legs to be black again.
Sector, they struck a nice balance with. Cyrax, there's just too much yellow everywhere.
Yeah, he looks like Armageddon. Or not Armageddon. He looks like Annihilation. He looks like movie Cyrax. Like, that's how yellow he is. He's too yellow.
Annihilation Cyrax bugs me a little bit because of the chest piece is bulky in the wrong ways, but
yeah,
it just looks like, I don't know, some kind of latex metal ninja suit. So yeah,
it's weird. But on the subject of the Cyber's designs, there's an interesting thing where the devs said that the body, like the armor that Cyber Sub got, is the armor Smoke would have gotten. And you can kind of see, like, Cyber Sub's legs, like his knees and shins, do look like the one Smoke had in Deception.
You know, the dreads are there, and I'm happy for that.
Yeah.
I do see the similarity with the shins. Maybe it's the fact that it's like light blue on silver.
Yeah, like if it were purple.
If it were purple and the silver was more subdued.
I think there are obvious changes that were made to fit Sub-Zero. Like, he has these giant shoulder pads and the Bluetooth things. I don't think Smoke would have had those.
I actually kind of like the Bluetooth shoulder pads. They're one of the things I appreciate.
Yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because it is a thing they said, and I can kind of see it in places.
That's fair.
But in other places, I think Cyber Sub is too, like, he has this weird, out of proportion anatomy. His body is a little bit feminine. Like, his waist is so thin compared to his, like, pecs and hips.
He's got kind of like Evangelion proportions a little bit.
Yeah, it is awkward. But anyway, that is the last, thankfully, that we will see of canon Cyber Sub-Zero. Because come MK9, or come MKX, Quan Chi is immediately like,
no,
all this technology isn't working for me. It's got to go. All this has got to go.
This does not spark joy. Clean it.
There is an interesting question it raises of how come he gave Sub-Zero a human body again, but he didn't fix Cabal or Jax. And the argument that I would make is that Cyber Sub was obviously weaker than regular Sub, but Jax and Cabal are stronger with their cybernetics. Which is a weird argument to make because Cabal's mask, like, if you pull that tube, he's dead. One move and he's gone.
Have you had the discussion over whether or not the dead breathe?
I mean, they might not. Maybe Revenant Cabal doesn't have to worry about it. The mask is purely cosmetic.
It's one of the things that I tell myself whenever I see maskless Cabal running around in MK11. He's
Yeah.
already dead. It shouldn't matter that much.
I guess. Like, I'm okay with that. I think if I were Quan Chi, I would also keep Cabal the way he is because it looks edgier. And that's his style.
Maybe he just straight up can't fix that face.
Like
It's
human
just bad.
Cabal just doesn't look cool. Also, I think Revenant Jack's got a really cool design with the spike armor growing out of his skin.
No, I
think they actually could have gone further with it.
Revenant Jax, Revenant Kung Lao, Revenant Nightwolf, and 11 specifically. They did good on a lot of those designs. Not all of them, but some of them really stood out to me. I enjoyed particularly. But
I dug it.
So do you want to cover the MKX comic before we go into 10?
Yeah.
Because he does a bit of stuff there.
Yeah, he does. So, I mean, chronologically, the thing that happens first is Sonya's chapter of X, the flashbacky parts.
And at this point, at this point, he's already...
Chronologically, the first thing is the first chapter, Johnny's chapter, then Sonya's, then the comic, then the rest of the game.
Well, when we see him on the helicopter...
Yeah.
He's got the kind of metal spine going on.
So there is a line in the concept art in the crypt about how the spine was supposed to reference Cyber Sub, how it was supposed to be like a remnant of that technology. But it doesn't look like one at all. It literally just looks like an edgelord decoration. Like it would be...
That's what I figured it was.
It would be cool for the man to wear metal spine armor. Especially because he rips people's spines out.
See, the spine kind of made me figure that it was... Giving him his humanity back was maybe kind of a work in progress at the time until I read the comic. It looked like it was a slow procedure.
I don't know, like for me... Like, I played the game... And then I read the comic. So you're playing the game and you see how he does it to Johnny with the blood pool, and I'm like, okay, that's how they all work. It's that simple. You make a body and you put the soul in it. But I don't know, like I just and I've had some arguments with Django over this because he likes Cyber Sub, so he likes the idea that spine armor is cybernetic. I just don't think it looks cyber. I just think it looks like armor.
I'm trying to find an actual shot of his back.
A picture of Revenant Sub's back.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It is shinier than the rest of the stuff surrounding, but it looks more like... I can see where you're coming from, where like it looks more like an attachment. Because it doesn't really have
it looks like it's just on his clothes. Like it's just armor.
It's missing like some sort of attachment directly from the top of it that goes into the base of his skull.
Like there is detailing that a cybernetic thing tends to have visually, where like there are, I don't know, visible joints or lights or wires, you know? It doesn't have any of that. It just looks like spiky armor.
That said, it's a bit lighter and more silvery than a lot of his decor is going on. Like, everything else is pretty subdued, but that does seem to shine a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's like just, you could say, like, it's highly polished to draw more attention to it, like...
So I can buy that
it's just, look, Sub-Zero rips people's spines off, so he's wearing spine armor. It's to make him look edgy and cool. That's how I see it.
I'll go with work in progress. Mostly human, but, you know, still a little bit left.
But...
There's also, the front of his outfit. The area immediately below his neck, like his chest. It's kind of different. There's some kind of almost quasi-circuit patterning there, too.
So here's a thing about the Revenant Sub-Zero costume. If you look at the concept art, that was originally a reptile outfit. And they just changed the head and recolored it.
Yeah, well, it works better for Sub.
It does work better for Sub. I'm just saying, like, how can you argue that they were thinking of Cyber Sub when they designed it if they originally designed it for fucking Reptile, you know?
They could have touched it up.
Like
here and
I'm
there.
sure, like the picture only shows the front of it in the reptile version, so I'm sure they added the spine after. But the front is totally reptile, so, or at least that's who it was made for, and then they decided not to use it for reptile, and they came up with something more reptilian.
It just kind of feels like an alternate twisted unmasked sub like angle a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's the other
yeah.
thing about it is that in the mobile game, they added a hood to it, made it all black, and called it Noob Saibot.
Yeah, yeah, the mobile game.
And it does totally look like a Noob Saibot costume.
Well, the mask goes a long way with that.
Yeah. So MKX starts with Shinnok's invasion in media res. So there's a whole bunch of shit we haven't seen. We're just skipping straight to the end. And it's, Johnny and Sonya are flying towards Raiden's Sky Temple because it's under attack, and Scorpion and Sub-Zero are among those in the city they're flying through who try to stop them. And what's interesting to me is that Scorpion never talks about either working with Sub-Zero or with Noob Saibot. Like, he doesn't seem to care anymore. Ever.
Those aren't the real Sub-Zero and Noob Saibot, and maybe he knows that.
Maybe. I mean, how does Scorpion feel about the fact that he is literally the only guy on Team Quan Chi who's not mind-controlled?
Might feel pretty proud, as a matter of fact. Look at all these useless pricks. I got to keep my will intact.
If I were in that situation, if I were working for Hell, and like, how does Scorpion not realize he's on the bad guy side? Or does he realize and not care? Like, is he that fucked up at this point?
I think it's second. I think it's he's angry.
He knows he's in the wrong, and he's just like, fuck the world.
Yeah, pretty much. Quan Chi's done more for him through his knowledge than anyone has in a good long while. Partial revenge. He's literally dragged the people who tormented him down into hell with him. He's feeling pretty satisfied. Maybe it's an honor thing. Maybe he doesn't like it, but he's got a job to do.
I don't know if there's a lot of honor in murdering the world.
Listen, man, the Japanese take their employment very seriously. It's not like our work ethic.
No, he's totally a salary man. You've got it. I buy that. He's doing what he's told.
You have an employer, you're paid well, you've got a home, nice warm home.
He's gonna work 90 hours a week until he's ready to jump off the building.
That's my next project in Source Filmmaker. Scorpion standing up on the way home in the subway, drunk and asleep.
Salary man Hanzo.
Just face up against the subway screen and just.
I like it. Listeners, if you don't know about Japanese culture, look that shit up. It is fucked.
Things might change in the future, but yeah, it's a problem. I sadly didn't see any drunk sleeping salaryman on the way, although a lady on the subway was nodding off on my shoulder. It was cute, really. Anyway.
Honestly, I think that's in the plus column for the Japanese culture, that you can feel safe falling asleep on their subway. You definitely could not do that in an American city.
No, like, people fall asleep on the street in Tokyo. It happens.
Yeah, if you fall asleep on a New York subway, you're gonna wake up naked and shivved.
Someone's licking your feet. Hope you enjoy it.
It's gonna be the kidneys missing in the bathtub full of ice, minus the bathtub full of ice. Like, not even that courtesy.
You don't need all those organs. You're fine. The nap is worth it.
You are a corpse, and your corpse is part of the graffiti.
Okay, so next up, MKX comic.
Well, no, so I was just gonna say, so Sub-Zero and Scorpion fight Johnny and Kenshi in this flashback section, but there's not really any character work in it. It's really just kind of to show you that they're there and this is what they're doing now.
It's a refresher. And
It's
mostly
all
back to
establishing.
yeah.
And from there, we go to Sonya's flashback chapter, where we see how he became alive again.
Which was kind of an accident, but a happy one.
Yeah. So Johnny and Sonya have invaded the Nether Realm with some soldiers. That's always so weird to me, to see these American soldiers with guns launching attacks on the afterlife. Going to hell. Like, I really, really want some writer to explore what religion and philosophy are like in the MK universe, because it's gotta be super fucked up.
Now, if you recall, and I know you recall, that in order to even get into the Nether Realm, you have to have an untainted soul.
Well, we should... I'm not sure that's canon in the new timeline.
Probably not.
But if it was, I mean...
That's a lot of...
let's be honest. Is there a single member of the American military who thinks they're not going to hell when they die?
Yes, probably.
I mean, repenting after your service is over, sure. But if you die while you're holding a gun overseas, I don't think your chances are good.
That's for something else. That's for an entirely different podcast, not hosted by us.
Yeah, that's... I mean, there's an argument about morality there that's really not appropriate for this venue.
Let's just get back to the silly ninjas hitting each other. So, I mean, do we really want to cut right there? Because I guess, well, you said before you don't really consider the scene where Quan Chi strips him of all his cybernetic bits once he gets down there any form of canon at all.
Yeah, I don't think that's canon. I think, like, we see how it's done to Johnny in the Sonya chapter. I think that's how he did it to all of them.
Now, I can kind of buy the fact that maybe it's like just his soul he's cleansing. I'm okay with that.
Well, you look at... So the Revenants are slightly different from Scorpion, as we discussed. They're under the mind control and everything, and that's why they have, like, the gray skin and the glowing veins. And we see that when Raiden purifies them all in this MKX scene, where he's, like, chaining it to him saving Johnny's life, there's, like, this mist that peels off of them, and the skin tone goes with it. You see that on Jax, and then you see it on Sub-Zero, and the same mist rises off Scorpion, but the only thing about him that changes is his eyes get pupil.
Because he's not a Revenant.
Right. But he is dead, and now he's not. So... I don't know. It's sort of a, the way Raiden is using magic here, he's doing two things, but only one of them affects Scorpion, I guess. It's sort of... The flimsy catch-all nature of it kind of bugs me. If you were...
Call it what it is. It's a plot contrivance.
It is a plot contrivance, because if you actually, like, if you had a setting where magic was fleshed out, where there are specific spells that do specific things, like, say, Dungeons and Dragons, you're not going to find one spell that brings someone to life and cures them of mind control in the same spell.
Even Final Fantasy don't have that. It's just, once they're dead, it's life. You're good. Once they're dead, you come back, you're all right.
And I guess I can't fault them as a writer. Your choices are to either just put something in the scene and keep going, or to interrupt your script writing to come up with an entire book of magic. I can see why they didn't sit down and make Mortal Kombat the role-playing game before they continued writing MKX.
Let's be real, we both buy it.
I would I want to be the guy who makes that.
I have to settle for hero clicks or some shit.
Well, there is super a market for a Mortal Kombat role-playing game. There's been a Street Fighter role-playing game. Fucking Nightwolf made that shit. It's not good, but it exists.
So from here, do we want to cover Sub's return to the Lin Kuei and his dealings with the Kami Dogu daggers?
Yeah. So this brings us to the comic, which actually sort of explores what I would call the natural outcome of being brought back to life after you've spent years as a slave of a necromancer. Which is to say, Sub-Zero is immediately suicidal in his depression.
He's definitely morose for the better part of the time we see him in the comic.
Yeah, and I will point out that Sub and Jax were only Revenants for 2 years. Imagine how bad it would be for, like, Liu Kang and Kung Lao to have come back if they had been cured as Revenants instead of replaced by their past selves in 11. I always said, like, if you actually brought all those guys back to life, they're not really gonna be useful anymore. They're all gonna be, like, suicidal messes. They're all gonna have the worst case of PTSD in the history of anything ever.
Well, at the end of 11, Kung Lao was straight up psychotic.
Yeah.
He was not in a good place.
Yeah,
the damage is done.
It was a problem. And so I think 11 had to use time travel to replace them. I don't think curing them ever would have produced the people we used to know.
No, if
not in a
happened,
satisfactory way.
If that had happened, you would have gotten, like, at best, dark anti-hero Kung Lao and Liu Kang, and I know that that's not what you'd want.
Yeah, like the best you could have gotten is an entire roster of Hanzo Hazashis.
Oh God, spare me.
And let's keep in mind that even living Kung Lao is kind of an asshole.
Every fucking time he opens.
But yeah, so the comic actually does explore, like, after Sub-Zero has been restored to life, he's, like, in bed at the... Was it the Sky Temple? It's either the Sky Temple or the Shaolin. He's at some monastery, recovering.
I'm gonna have to load up my old trusty pirate comic sites.
I'm pretty sure it was Sky Temple, but he's like overcome with guilt, and he is, like, contemplating suicide. He's like, what's even the point of me having come back? Why did you bother? And Bo Rai Cho is there, and he basically has to be Bo Rai Cho until Sub-Zero stops being mopey. Like, he's just kind of brushing off his concern, offering him drink, and he's like giving him some fortune cookie advice.
Is there anyone you would not want? I mean, is there anyone you wouldn't want? That you would want more than Bo Rai Cho at your side when you're depressed?
I honestly believe Bo Rai Cho is the best, like, the best cure for angst
is Bo Rai Cho.
Is to just completely no-sell it. Just get someone with a good sense of humor in there to kind of treat them like garbage, but in a cheerful way. Until they come out of their funk. Just treat their funk as a joke.
Yes, you're gutter trash. Have another drink.
But what it actually comes down to is Bo Rai Cho finds an outlet for him, something useful for him to do to make him feel better, and that's, hey, what if we go take the Lin Kuei back from Sektor?
Not so much in this timeline a destined outcome. Something to struggle with, strive for. Not so much the middle of the hero's journey. It's a pick-me-up here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that kind of, without the comic, the way MKX just sort of cuts straight to Deadly Alliance Sub-Zero, kind of bugs me. It feels like pandering. Like the developers saw the reaction, everybody hated Cyber Sub, And they immediately went, okay, well, what's everybody's favorite version of Sub? We'll do that instead. And they sort of cut all of the development that got him there. They just sort of glossed over it. Like, that was what was so great about Sub-Zero in the old timeline, was seeing the growth step by step. But it just skips ahead in MKX. And I don't think that the comic completely fixes that, but it does make it a little better to actually see events like him going to fight Sektor. And I do think there are funny elements of it, like after he beats Sektor and is at the Lin Kuei temple and he's like praying and deciding what to do next, and Frost just shows up and all these people show up and he's like, the fuck are you doing here? And they're all like, Raiden told us you were holding a membership tournament. He's like, I never said fucking Raiden. Like,
well, I mean, look at
I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah,
there's this weird element of it of like breaking the fourth wall, as though Raiden knows how things went in the old timeline and is trying to get them back on track. There's a little bit of like a winking the writer going, using Raiden as his avatar to sort of fix things, which I don't necessarily think is appropriate for Raiden, because historically he is a giant fuck up in this timeline and everything he does is wrong. But in this one instance, I'll accept it because it's kind of amusing.
I appreciate deeply Raiden trying to redeem himself by fixing things. Like, one of the first things
that amuses me about it is that somehow Raiden knows what Sub-Zero should be doing based on what he was doing in the version of the universe that didn't suck.
I mean, who knows how many visions he got from the amulet, which magically disappeared by the time of 11.
Yeah, that is a thing.
He might have actually seen the future. You can explain it that way. Try to steer things back towards the way they should be.
I think so not to skip over it, but the entire sequence of Sub-Zero and Bo Raicho finding Sektor's bunker and fighting the Lin Kuei is, I mean, it's the two best issues of the fucking comic. There's a neat thing
like
the
you,
art does.
Like you, I just wish that that's the kind of thing that we'd been able to see in a game, but all
of this should have been in a game. And some of it is stuff that obviously we didn't even get to see in Deadly Alliance. We were just told about, like fighting Sektor for control of the clan, Frost coming to the temple, and
gotta say though, that's
the membership tournament. Those are I enjoy those, especially the Frost stuff, because she didn't have a backstory in the old timeline, and we talked about that last episode. But yeah, so Sub-Zero he finds this bunker. So it involves hiring Kung Jin to steal a computer virus from, quote unquote, some programmers in Chicago.
They've got your hookup.
And so Jin comes back with a flash drive with like a skull and crossbones painted on it.
You know what bugged me about those comics?
What's that?
The one cover where like just Sub has Sektor's head just straightforward between his freezing hands. You know how some comics just mislead you? Lots of comics just mislead you. I would have given a little bit for a bit of misleading. Just there. It's like
they did.
The second I saw that issue on the shelves, fucking shit. What happens now? Guess I know.
Like, comic book covers have a tendency to either spoil the story or have nothing to do with the story.
Anyway,
really, the only two kinds there are.
Finally, time to shut down the cyber Lin Kuei, says Sub-Zero with a hard drive in his fingertips.
So what I like about it is that the art for the first, like, his run through the bunker fighting all the the NPC cybers is all drawn from like a side perspective, like mythologies.
Yeah, it felt exactly
it
like
becomes
that.
a 2D platformer.
The art here was pretty good at points, where he's about to like smash the doors in and he's like, oh, I'm counting on it.
One thing I really liked about how the comic always depicted Sub-Zero is that the pupil of his scar eye was always kind of colored in glassy, like cataracty.
Like it should have been, yeah.
Yeah, which I've always said, like, I prefer when they depict him as though, like, he's gone blind in that eye. Which they very rarely do in the games. I think the only game that actually does it is versus DCU.
Shame.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these side panels now. Okay, he busts through the door after freezing it, slides under a missile. The third one is just him straight up delivering a standing high punch to an NPC cyborg, rips it in half, slides down a flight of stairs, freezes a door, busts through that door, and immediately starts hacking because he's in the server room. Puts the drive in, smashes another robot, ducks under it, whips out the sword, puts it through its skull, and then he just busts into the mainframe.
Yeah. So once we get to like the dialogue, there is an interesting development in that the comic introduces, which is that to increase the ranks of his cyber Lin Kuei, Sektor has taken to cloning people.
Yeah, that's the first thing he says upon coming in. You couldn't stop at converting them. You had to clone them too. You sick son of a... He actually does say this. Sick son of a...
I think part of that is to set up Triborg's backstory, where, like, people are sort of confused in MKX. Is Triborg full robot? Or is there meat in there, and where did the meat come from? I think there's definitely, like, a cloned body inside Triborg.
Really? I actually kind of figured it was just nothing but machine.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, he has gore, right? When you do fatalities and stuff.
Synthetic gore. Who knows?
I don't know. I assume that, like, I don't think...
Look, I try not to think too hard about Triborg in general.
Requires it to be attached to a body. I don't think it's advanced enough to go full robot yet.
I mean, we've got full robots. We don't have full cyborgs. Depends how you look at it. Anyway.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's the part, like, the most important part is that there's a brain. Like, the reason that the robots we have in the real world aren't artificial intelligence yet is because, like, the sentient brain is super fucking complex.
So we get more of these, like, side panels. I think the artist just, like, straight up flipped the first Fierce Punch panel. Because once he's down there, it's just same thing, flip left to right. He actually says heads up after taking off this one's head. Puts his sword through three more of them.
His fucking puns and one-liners.
Yeah, MK11's evidence of that. It doesn't stop. So he puts his sword through three more heads.
Like, 11 story mode is surprisingly restrained compared to the comic in that respect.
Oh yeah. The story mode, but not so much the versus dialogue.
No, the versus... Well, that's kind of what versus dialogue is for. For dumb puns and stuff. It's all very, like... How deep can you get with 3 sentences?
You can have some good conversations without needing to always resort to one-liners. There's some great stuff in there. I shouldn't be wincing every other... Anyway.
I think you're playing as Kung Lao too much. That's your problem.
See, most of those aren't puns. It's just general jackassery.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Infiltrates the base, stabs 3 more, freezes 3 more, kicks one's head off. Then he finally just gets, like, football tackled by 3 of them. And he gets escorted to see Sektor.
Yeah.
Who's got Cyrax kind of, like, running virus control.
Right, but Cyrax can't stop the virus.
Nope. Just sitting there.
And eventually Cyrax himself is freed.
94% of the Lin Kuei network is infected with no discernible effect on functionality. Why isn't this actually doing anything? This is freaking me out. Before she punches him. So yeah, he tells Cyrax to initiate an emergency memory dump, and this is about the time where Cyrax starts, like, slowly coming back to himself because he's too slow on the uptake.
Yeah.
You can temporarily override someone's conscience, but you can't delete their humanity. I like that line.
It is the gravitas that we should have had during MK9. Like, whenever the Cyber Initiative was dealt with.
So what he does is he attacks the slaving protocols.
Yeah.
And Sektor's like, the cloning program makes them obsolete, and that's when Cyrax is like, haha, fuck you. Turns around, fires a net at Sektor, who teleport punches under it. And Cyrax is like, I forgot what pain feels like. Thanks, Kuai Liang.
Yeah, there are, I imagine, some advantages to being a robot.
So, they fight a little bit, and it does not take him long at all to take down Sektor. Like, the fight lasts a page in, like, the next issue.
It's a real short fight. There's some flamethrower versus ice, and then it's pretty much straight to cutting his head off.
You can't counter oxyhydro fuel burning at 3,000 degrees. Yes, I can. I've been holding back. Off goes your arms, and off goes your fucking head.
This isn't even my final form.
The master is obsolete. Replacement needed. Searching. Searching. Cyrax is the master.
Yeah.
You are the last original cyber. What is your directive?
The NPCs all bow to him because he's the only other one who has color on his armor.
What is your directive? Give me a moment alone with Kuai Liang.
It's just like, wait, what? No, I don't want it. Aww.
I like how Sektor's body is, like, while they're talking in the background, it's true to the games, it's on its knees and it's still spurting blood.
So Cyrax, at this point, the characterization is how really, like, Cyber Smoke should be written, not how Cyrax should be written, because if you remember the old timeline, Cyrax was able to cope with being a cyborg and join the Special Forces and put himself to good use, doing good things. And I always felt like, look, Cyrax, as a character, is the guy who didn't have powers before. And part of this is an old timeline versus new timeline thing, where in the old timeline it was never specified whether he agreed to the process or not. It's kind of treated like he was asked to and he submitted. Because he's loyal and shit, and then he regretted it later. But obviously, new timeline Cyrax, despite his lack of skills, won't shut up about chi and instincts and how being a robot is bad for your fighting skills, and he never wanted it. And so now, when he's the moment that he has free will again, he's suicidal. Seems to be a running theme.
There are times when I think that they just kind of base their characterization a bit too much on techniques and special moves. So I tend to wonder if this isn't like, oh yeah, he's the guy that blows himself up.
This is because Cyrax self-destructs as a fatality?
Yeah.
You think this is in his personality that he wants to blow up?
Sadly, I think that that's what Kittleson was thinking when he was writing Cyrax here. And
it's
for MK11, it's too much of a coincidence.
What I think it is that Kittleson knew they had no plans for Cyrax, and so decided to write him off. Because if you keep a guy alive, then people ask, well, where is he now? And if you kill him, you don't have to answer that question.
Well, joke's on them. He showed up anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, the very next scene, what I'm talking about here is, like, after the base blows up and Bo Cho is on fire, Sub-Zero just shows up and freezes him a little bit, then, like, frees him. Oh, sorry to put you on ice, Bo. You were getting overcooked. And Bo throws up for no good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, like...
That's what I'm talking about. It's like, let's have them do all the things that they do all the time.
Like, I can understand an argument that, like, look, he was sitting next to an explosion went off next to his head, and then he got frozen, and so he's like, maybe that would give you some indigestion, you know? maybe it's like, people who get a concussion tend to throw up, don't they? But no,
fine.
Kittleson did it because Bo Cho is famous for throwing up. That's the reason that scene is there. And that's just kind of sad.
It's like, buy me a stiff drink and we'll call it even, and Sub goes, fine. 1 round.
I would like to see the scene of Sub-Zero in a bar drinking. Like, that is a character moment that we're never going to get with that guy. Like, Kuai Liang is so stiff. And part of this also ties into, like, that whole thing where I'd like to see him hook up with Serena, but he doesn't seem to know what women are. Like, Kuai Liang needs to learn how to live a little. He needs to, like, pull the stick out of his ass.
Know what'll do that for you? A fighting tournament. Live a little, why don't you? Why the fuck is Frost blue in this scene? I really don't get it.
I think she had, like, bluish-white skin the entire comic. Like, that was just making her that pale was a thing with the art in the comic.
Like, she was pale during her fight with Cassie, but here she is just straight-up Mystique shade of blue. Very nearly.
I kind of like it.
I'm not opposed to it. It's just an odd choice.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like, and obviously this isn't a written thing, this is a me headcanon thing. I feel like it could somehow express, like, the fact that since she doesn't know how to use her powers, they're kind of pent up.
That could work.
You know, like, maybe she's turning more and more blue until she finally learns how to release the cryomancy energy. I think that might be a cool thing, that, like, a characterization thing you could do. Or she could just be pale, like...
I'm okay with that.
I think it's a good look.
It's a bit on the nose, but I suppose I don't mind.
So that's kind of... I mean, that's Sub-Zero in the comic. It basically gets... We get to see how he goes from the mental state of having just awakened from being a Revenant to reforming the Lin Kuei.
Yes, Raiden sent a bunch of NPCs his way.
Yeah, and one of them is probably Chrome.
There's a generic town villager. There's what looks like someone from War Gods. There's a full-on pirate back there. There's not Scarlet. There's that guy from the Batman Nightfall era whose body was made out of, like, spikes. There's a Shadow Priest. I think that's Tazia back there in the shadows.
Sure, why not?
Good times. So that's some of the comics.
One of my favorite things in Mortal Kombat media is looking at the crowd shot NPCs and how silly they all look. Like that baseball cap mullet guy from Journey Begins.
People who are made to be killed. Just enough detail to make them noticeable. Not enough to ever be worthy of consideration as a main cast member.
Yeah, none of these guys are particularly special looking. I think you can see why Sub-Zero's version of the Lin Kuei, they all just wear generic blue uniforms instead of all having their own unique colors and superpowers.
Alright, leave your Dungeons and Dragons NPC shit at the door. I think my brother had about 5 closets worth of stuff. I don't know. A bunch of spare stuff sitting around. So that's Sub in the comic. So that's the period between the flashback
like I said,
and
I
MKX
appreciate
proper.
that we got to see that, because otherwise MKX is totally just... They hated Cyber Sub. Quick! Pull the... in case of emergency, break glass lever.
Abort. So
Just
MKX
straight back to Deadly Alliance.
X brings us the good stuff. Eventually.
I mean, it brings us the good stuff visually. Story-wise, he doesn't do jack shit.
No, he doesn't. He's in the midst of training people, and he accepts, a little beat down on the combat kids for Sonya's sake, which is nice.
I mean,
you know and I know that the tea ceremony is worth this entire game.
Yes, the tea ceremony is what we all came for. It's worth the price of admission alone.
20 years of war, and now there's peace.
It was long overdue. I think the listeners of this show have definitely heard us go on and on and on about the tea ceremony many a time. It's almost like you could cut that scene out and not have an MKX, just have that scene. The rest of the game doesn't need to be there.
In 1999, I think I would have paid $60 for that scene alone. Thing of beauty, man. It can't be stated often enough.
But yeah, we get to see not only the making of the piece, but what Frost is up to in this timeline. We get to see Sektor's head.
Still just fucking sitting there.
I wonder if he's technically still alive, because he's hooked up to this stuff. There's like this air compressor thing, this tiny little jar that with like an accordion bit that moves up and down. Like, there's this stuff that's apparently keeping his electronics running.
Maybe it's oxygenating his brain to keep it from rotting, so the memories can be accessed?
It's possible. Like, I wish... Because we got this little cutscene for the DLC where Triborg teleports in, takes the head, and teleports away. Like, I want to see what Triborg did with the head. And I want what he did with the head to be to take his own head off and attach it. Because Triborg is totally fucking Sektor. The other personalities never manifest. He's just Sektor.
You're asking what I'm asking for, and that's for the Enenra to mean something.
Yeah.
But we know it never will.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So, was there anything particularly of note when he's actually whooping on Cassie and the combat kids?
I mean, it's obvious that he's softballing with them, that he could totally kick all their asses.
You're more like your mother than you think. Whoop. Your powers should have revealed my intention, Takahashi Takeda. Kenshi no doubt taught you how to use them. Oh, show me. Whoop. You're not your dad. Not yet. Yeah, he pretty much just, like, shuts them down one after the next.
You know, though, the fact that this scene exists... This is the kind of stuff Raiden should be doing, isn't it? Like...
Is it?
The good advice, the character exploration, the, like, telling you your own flaws. Raiden never does that in these games, does he?
Is Raiden now, by MKX, in a position to be telling anyone about flaws?
Well, Cassie doesn't... She wasn't there for all the dumb mistakes he made. He has some, like, respect with her, I would think.
He does, but maybe he doesn't feel that he's in a position to be telling anyone what to do.
Well, I will say, like, there was the one with Kung Jin's backstory, where Raiden comes across as...
There's that. That's the Raiden I want to see.
It's just funny to me that, like, Raiden's character has been devalued as much as it had, that, like, Sub-Zero's hasn't, so advice still sounds valid coming from him. Like, there's all these characters who are better at Raiden's job than Raiden is.
On the topic of character, we also get maybe another bit of evidence that he's playing tough guy here. Because Cassie's like, you're gonna catch hell if you kill us. And Sub goes, yes, I suppose so. So yeah, it's a training exercise. He was never going to kill them. He just likes to act tough.
I suppose, well, it's definitely, like, part of the lesson to be taught.
Yeah.
Like, look, these are the consequences. I'm not really going to do it, but you should know.
Could have your heads right now.
Like, you put a little fear into them, they understand the price of failure, and they will work harder not to fail again. But yeah, he is a big softie, which is, like, this is the Sub-Zero I want to see. The disappointment is that his chapter is spent developing for people who aren't him. Like, this was Sub-Zero's chapter.
Well, they also... You gotta consider not everyone is gonna have read the comic, and it does show the viewers that this is where he is now, and this is what he's doing, and he's improved.
Like, I get that. Like, it definitely is useful for establishing that we're back to Deadly Alliance status quo, that he is the Grandmaster of the clan. I just wish that he had a chapter where he actually did important things in the plot. Like, screen time-wise, Sub-Zero is the playable character, but the camera cares about Cassie's team.
Well, in the long game...
This is all to establish their character flaws and build their personalities and set up their status quo so that all that stuff is in the bank for when they go to Outworld and you don't have to keep establishing Kung Jin is the Wrath, you know? And that's the main thing the scene is about, is just like Kung Jin is the loose cannon. Kung Jin doesn't get along with the rest of the team. Cassie has trouble getting her people under control. These are the things they need to work on.
But it does once again establish him as being in a more sound space and in a more leadership kind of mindset. He's become that person that we were hoping to see.
Yeah.
And older people may not have been all that and the younger generation of fans may not have been all that familiar with.
I suppose. I think my disappointment of it is just that now that we've got him back to Deadly Alliance, this is the status quo he stays in for the rest of this timeline. Like, he never goes further. He never meets Serena. He never discovers the Cryomancer ancestors and gets the armor. He doesn't do anything but be Lin Kuei Grandmaster.
I mentioned this, I think, on the last show, that it's a far enough way to come, and I definitely get that. If the Cryomancer angle had not occurred, it could be a logical conclusion point, which is what they seem to believe.
I get the thing that bothers me about it is that we've gone from the old timeline. Sub-Zero was basically the secondary main character. Like, Liu Kang and Kung Lao and Katana, Raiden, the people who fight Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, like the main villains, they were the A-plot main character. Sub-Zero was always the main character of the B-plot, whatever that was. It was always something about him. There no longer is a B-plot. Sub-Zero has just faded into the background. 9, X, and 11, he's all just another guy who is there. And that's why he never really moves forward.
Oh, sure, I get that.
But yeah, so, like, Sub-Zero, after this training chapter, doesn't show up again until the very end of the game, where he's at the temple and he sees the sky turn red because Shinnok has taken over the Jinsei. And he mobilizes Lin Kuei, and they come to the Deadwoods, and they save Cassie's team from Kotal Khan's people. And push back to Outworld so that Cassie's team can go up to the temple and beat Shinnok. And that's all he does. And honestly, like, if this was where Sub-Zero had a chapter, like, if you actually got to play him fighting Kotal and Ferritor and Eren, I'd be okay with that.
No, I feel you.
I think that would have been a little better use. Like, it would have felt more like he was doing something important in the game.
Well, to be fair, the tea ceremony does set up a lot of his own interactions with Hanzo, and
yeah, I mean, the tea ceremony
for 11, for 11, it makes a huge difference. It's very essential. Yeah,
the tea ceremony is really the keystone thing. It's the important thing. But in X, it's Scorpion's thing more than it is Sub-Zero's.
And, you know, not every game can be Sub-Zero's game. It's actually...
I guess I wish every game were Sub-Zero's game.
See, there you go. Like, It's not like he never had a lot of his own to begin with, you know?
Like I get, like,
So-
that I'm...
So, like...
He had the entire old timeline. He was the king of those 7, 8 if you count Mythologies games. Sub-Zero was the man of the old timeline. So, like, when I complain that, oh, there's 3 games where he's not important in, it's like, I sound entitled. I get it. But the heart wants what the heart wants, man.
Look, for the purposes of X and what it does for a lot of people, like Hanzo, and to some extent, at least at the time, Sonya and Johnny, Quan Chi getting kicked in the balls, Scorpion being kind of really redeemed by this game, I can overlook it. If all the game does for him, personally, is to set him back to the good status quo, I can live with it. Because it did it very
at
well.
least it does that much. Like, I have to admit, like, him being the Grandmaster of the Lin Kuei again and training Frost again and wearing the unmasked outfit again, those totally feel like a victory after 9. Like, I don't think any single thing in the new timeline has ever made me as happy as Beard Zero, the costume.
Ah, yes, the glory of the beard. Scorpion had a beard. Sub-Zero had a beard.
Like, that's just always been my favorite Sub-Zero costume, and every time it comes back, they update it a little bit more, like they add a little more, like, bells and whistles. In X's case, it's mostly a lot of belts. It's very Tetsuya Nomura. I still like it, though. Like, I will never not like that fucking outfit. And the beard is an amazing addition to it. Like,
have we
like
done...
if I compare that beard to, like, him being a balding, gray old man, like, super fucking withered in Deadly Alliance, I will take the beard every fucking time.
Have we done our actual favorite Kuai Liang outfit?
No, we haven't done
we have.
favorite costumes. I assumed we were saving favorite costumes and finishers till the end, as we usually do, but since we're talking about X, and that costume, like, for Sub-Zero, costumes have always been part of his story. How he dresses has always been, like, a character element, like a plot element.
Always very important, more than anyone else.
That's another thing I love about Sub-Zero, that what he wears is part of his fucking story, and a lot of characters don't get that consideration. They just get whatever the artists design, and that's it. Like, I honestly wish characters changed clothes less often if they're not going to have a story about it, because otherwise it's just kind of pointless decoration. Like, it's just... I would rather the Street Fighter way, where people wear what they wear, and when they change clothes, it has a meaning.
But they change clothes so very, very infrequently, though, that it actually does bug me. I was... For all my problems with 5, I was happy to see Vega put on a shirt and, like, have Dhalsim wearing something different and have the option, the choice, and the variety.
You don't want people to get bored with the designs, which is definitely, like, there's got to be a happy medium between how MK does costumes and how Street Fighter does costumes. Like, for example, from MK2 to MK3, Raiden and Baraka don't change clothes. And part of that is just because they're reusing sprites in Trilogy because they weren't in the previous versions of 3. But if you really think about it, why would Raiden ever change his clothes? He's millions of years old, and his clothing isn't really clothing, it's a construct. Like, he's made of lightning. This is just how he chooses to appear. He should just wear the same thing all the time.
He's got some pretty bitchin' garb in 11, though.
Yeah.
I like the floral patterns. Anyway.
But that's the thing about, like in 11. His outfit is actually a retcon of his 9 costume. Like, the way the games treat costumes isn't that people are changing clothes. It's to constantly retcon what their clothes were. And that is so weird.
The conversation about design. I've never understood it. I really don't. Like, how far they go out of their way to revamp everyone every time they come back.
I don't understand that they do it in flashbacks, that they retcon clothing. Why don't they just... If you're going to have the characters wear something different, have it be because they own a closet, not because you rewrite the past.
At times I kind of wonder, like, did they look back at Scorpion starting with UMK3 and go, okay, the UMK3 costume is now what we want him to be considered as having the default. Like, that should be what he's always worn. Let's try to forget he was ever wearing the mirrored Lin Kuei wearing yellow cowardice thing. And then they took that logic and kind of applied it to everything else. Is it that? Or is it just when flashbacks occur, they can't be asked to whip up a new version of the old costume for the current engine?
I think it's...
Or you know...
I think it's the second thing.
Maybe. Who knows?
Because, like, for me, when I see Scorpion wearing his UMK3 costume in MK4, like... I don't go, I guess they retcon MK1 and 2, and this is the only thing he wears. That thought never occurred to me. I'm just thinking, I guess he's wearing the same thing he wore in the last game because he was too lazy to change. Or that he no longer sees a point in changing his clothes. You know, I think of it as an extension of character. Like, there's a reason for someone to wear the same clothes they wore in the last game. That doesn't mean he didn't wear in MK2 his MK2 outfit. That would be ridiculous.
It's the fact that he wears like the UMK3 outfit during mythologies kind of bugged me.
Yeah.
That's what gets me on this train of thought.
So when I look at that, in my brain I'm going, that's not what he's really wearing in this scene. They're just reusing assets. Like, I don't see that as canon.
So, like, you just figure that they just forgot and just reused the MK3 outfit?
Well, it's because if you look at, like, the cutscene that
like...
goes with it, he's got his MK2 mask on with his MK3 outfit, and it's like, they just picked what they had lying around the office when they shot this.
Unfortunate.
Because, honestly, they didn't record any blue screen for Scorpion for Mythologies. You can tell.
Those are
the first time you fight him, he's a color-swapped Sub-Zero, and the second time you fight him, he's UMK3 sprites. They didn't make any new Scorpion footage.
But they made a distinction. They chose to have two separate outfits.
Yeah, I think that was their way of illustrating that he's become a Spectre the second time you fight him, and now he has his powers and stuff.
You know what I think it is?
Like, they wanted a visual indicator that now he is the Scorpion you know.
I think it's because
he's undead.
I think it's because they didn't actually have sprites to account for him throwing his spear from the Sub-Zero.
Yeah, like they didn't record Sub-Zero doing that motion.
I think that's about it.
That's probably part of it too, yeah. But just from my point of view, look, if I'm being honest, when I think of the canon version of Mythologies in my head, it's not the one where Sub fights Scorpion. It's the one with the Shinnok scene. I think that's a better scene. And I know that the way you play the game, if you killed Scorpion, you get the second Scorpion fight. Like, that's...
It's always been backwards.
Goes. But my preference would be to get the Shinnok scene.
And that's because, you know, in the MK1 comic, when he fights him on the boat, he's surprised to see him. No,
yeah,
I fucking killed you. That doesn't make any sense
dead,
if he's already encountered his ghost.
There's also a continuity problem with the Scorpion scene in Mythologies. I think we already talked about this.
We probably did.
Bi-Han tells him Quan Chi killed his family, and he just refuses to believe him.
No.
I don't like that. I need him to not know when it comes to MK4.
I can believe he's that dumb. But anyway. So, I think this brings us to 11 with Sub now.
Right. So, 11 actually uses Sub-Zero, unlike X.
Incidentally, we are now looking at 2 hours, 20 minutes. So,
I think we can cover 11 and then be done.
Yeah. I'm getting hungry. So 11. Again,
Yeah, so
more or
Sub-Zero's
less.
first appearance in 11, I believe, is the Fire and Ice chapter,
Yeah.
which
He's,
it has
he's
already been
eavesdropping.
established that Kronika has brought Sektor back to life. And he is gone to his old Lin Kuei bunker to restart the Cyber Initiative, which the bunker is now established as being in a rock quarry, whereas in the MKX comic it was just in the middle of the woods. I'm fine with it, but it is an odd difference.
Not exactly continuity correct.
I mean, I just think it's odd that Kittleson wrote both things and is now retconning his own stuff.
You know what I said when I found out there was an MKX comic coming out? Do you remember what I said?
I don't remember your exact words.
None of that matter. That's what I said.
I mean, you were mostly right.
It just... I learned my lesson from so many Transformers tie-in comics.
Yeah, no, there's not a franchise in the world whose tie-in comics matter. There's not a single one. Like, with the Halo games, the books matter, and that's probably the only instance in history I can think of where the tie-in media of something is actual canon.
I think that
but Halo has had comics, and I'm pretty sure their comics don't fucking matter.
I think the Killer Instinct comics are actually written by the guys that did the bios for the games as well.
Yeah, the Killer Instinct does have a comic series that came out after, like it was a year ago, or something like that, and they are set after. They're set after the Shadow Lords mode. They continue the story from the end of the game.
I think it was canceled. I'm not sure.
I think so too. Like, I don't imagine it sold very well because
it was on my pull list, and then just I stopped getting comics.
I don't think anybody knew that those comics existed.
I'm proud to have all 6 issues.
But yeah, generally speaking, tie-in comics are never fucking canon to anything in the history of any franchise.
Well, MK11 has kind of an everything is canon-der mindset.
Yeah, and it does.
And it does reference,
but their excuse is like everything is canon, but it's canon to a timeline we're not in right now, so it doesn't actually matter. It's just Kittleson giving lip service to people that, like, whatever you wish you got to see, there's a version of it out there somewhere.
For your own sanity.
Is that satisfying to anybody? Does anybody prefer that?
Not really. My point is just, for your own sanity, the best you can really do is just to say, look, some version of this happened. You have Kotal talking about how he fought Goro.
Yeah.
So, sure, fine, whatever. Reiko Accords,
that's the thing.
whatever.
Like, MK11's approach is that it's actually not even canon to 9 and X. 9X and X's comic happened in a different timeline. And this timeline, most of the same or similar events happened, but some of them didn't. Like, that's the explanation for Scarlet is an orphan now, and Cabal's backstory is completely fucking different. Because 9 didn't happen, but a version of it did. It's basically their attitude towards costumes applied to the story.
That's what the series is now. It's just...
It's literally just...
It's fighting games.
It's on retcons. It's the attempt to make a continuous narrative out of nothing but retcons.
They need to reboot. Sorry. It just has to happen.
They need to reboot super bad, and they need to replace their entire writing staff with someone who understands the concept of consistency.
They need to give a shit about consistency. Sorry, NRS.
Yeah, they need to stop writing it as though it was a Marvel or DC comic. And I think that goes for a lot of media right now. I think we're living in an era where consistency and continuity in storytelling has become extremely devalued, which is so weird to me because I don't understand how you can tell a story if the past is up for grabs. I don't understand how you can have a narrative where cause and effect don't exist.
This is, to be really fair, this is how I tend to look at X-Men comics. Because the history of the X-Men is so convoluted and messed up.
I stopped giving a shit about the X-Men after the 90s, specifically because they are the most convoluted franchise in the history of superheroes.
If you want to read a good X-Men story now, do it in isolation. Get a trade paperback. Don't sit there trying to make sense out of every single story aspect, every single
I will
plot
also
angle.
say that even if you read them in a vacuum and you don't worry about continuity, I don't think the X-Men have had a good writer since Joss Whedon. And before him, the last good writer was Grant Morrison.
New issues
And this,
are actually
this
pretty
is like
damn
15
good.
years ago these books were out. Like, I think the X-Men have been garbage for a very long time.
Alright, let's get back on track. MK11. Sub-Zero.
Right, so Sub-Zero first shows up with Scorpion to take out Sektor and Cyrax, and the Chronica's attempt to restart the Cyber Lin Kuei.
I do like the fact that the opening shot establishes the kind of buddy relationship Hanzo and Kuai have right now.
Yeah, this sort of like the playful rivalry almost, where Scorpion's sneaking up on him with a sword, and Sub-Zero doesn't even look away from the spyglass. He's just like, "Hey Hanzo, I know you're there."
I could have killed you. I'm dropping Eves. I don't care.
So, I mean, it came up when we did our commentary for story mode, but I fucking love when they first sneak in, the guard at the door, they stab that guy like 30 times.
They hurt him so much, I was convinced it was smoke.
Like,
I really
one to the
was.
neck would have probably done it, and they just keep going.
It's like 10 seconds. Oh my god, the poor bastard.
It's like Monty Python or something. Like, why did they need to stab him so many times? This isn't stealthy. Like, an assassin kills a guy in a single stroke. That's efficiency. This is not that.
I have to assume that, given the fact that there was, like, one guy out there on guard duty, they're like, okay, you know what? He's hurting for help. Let's have a little fun. Whap, 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 whap.
It's a little ridiculous. So they sneak inside, and they see, like, the bodies and the remains of all the dead Lin Kuei who have been mostly left for scrap, because Frost's version of harvesting people to turn them into cyborgs is that she has no fucking idea which body parts are important, it seems like.
Now,
It shouldn't be complicated. You need the brain and the spine in this version of things. But there are heads on the ground, and she puts a buzzsaw straight down the middle of one guy's head.
I just have a mental image.
Salvageable.
I have that mental image. It's like she's just throwing naked corpses onto a conveyor belt and da 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 da, and
like
zip zap
like
down the
Sektor's
middle.
not in the room while she's running the conveyor belt. I think she's just pressing buttons. It doesn't know what they do. Just beep beep boop bop. Just it's totally like that Han Solo fucking. We're all right here. Everything's fine here now. Thank you. How are you? Shoot the console. Boring conversation anyway.
I want to note that the cyber base, like, if you look in the background, like, read the text, it actually says Dissection Pod 50 or Vivisection Pod 54. There's 54 of these fucking things. And, like,
that is a lot of pods.
That's how this is working. There are just corpses back there having their brains removed and their bodies just being dumped into some sort of horrible, horrible underground storage space. I hope there are grinders down there. Holy God.
I
There
have
is
to
all that
imagine
stuff
that
going.
the first 53 pods are running the way they're supposed to, like Sektor has them automated. And then he gave one to Frost just to keep her out of his hair. It's just like beep boop bop. I don't know what these buttons do, but this is pretty fun. And like, there's that bit when she first walks in the room that she shoves the jar of Jinsei into the console. What does that even do?
Powered
Like, we were told that they
cyborgs.
stole the Jinsei to power up Kronika's hourglass.
Punished cyborgs.
She's such an idiot. That's the read I get on that scene.
And she always has been, though, you know?
Like, what guy's body is
still
upside down in the fucking thing? That's not how that's supposed to go. I promise you.
Like, briefly on the topic of Frost, did anyone think it would go any other way with her? I see so much dislike and so much hate.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of people who want to see a timeline where Frost stays good.
There is no stays. She never was.
I don't believe that's possible.
I don't know whether people just...
There are a lot of people who believe that if Bihan hadn't become Noob Saibot, that he has the potential to turn good. And I have always 100% disagreed with that. But I will grant, like, I can at least imagine a world where if he didn't die, maybe Raiden constantly nagging him could have an effect. He would still be like a giant asshole, but maybe he'd be an asshole for Raiden's side instead of an asshole for the Lin Kuei.
Maybe.
Like, I could imagine that if he didn't die. I cannot imagine a world where Frost is a good guy.
And this is
like,
what I want to, like...
The best case scenario for her, and I've talked about this before, is I kind of would have liked to see a version of X where Frost had been on Cassie's team. But the dynamic that I imagine is one where she is just the worst and they all hate her.
She would have still gone bad.
Like, I think that would have been fun if instead of Jin being the asshole, Frost was the asshole. I think that would have been more entertaining. And I especially think it would have given Takeda more to work with because Shirai Ryu Lin Kuei rivalry. Because I don't think he and Jackie have any chemistry at all. But if there was like a weird thing where he's trying to juggle liking Jackie with maybe there's like a weird sexual tension between him and Frost where they kind of hate each other but they're also kind of attracted. If there were a triangle there, I think it could have actually made Takeda and Jackie not boring as
painful hate fucking. You know what though? It is kind of a shame that they didn't have like the plan for Kronika at the time that they wrote like 10, because adding Frost to the team and having her fuck off at some point would have done a lot in terms of foreshadowing.
Yeah, like if Frost was already established as a member of Cassie's team and betrayed them for Kronika, that would have been way more interesting, yeah.
Like, they would have even had to introduce Kronika. They could have just had to go, you know what, fuck this, I don't need any of this, I don't get along with any of you, I should be leading the clan, I'll go off and make my own clan with hookers and booze. That's all there is to it. So, anyway, not to derail the topic further,
so
I've never really understood why people dislike Cyber
Sub-Zero and Scorpion break in, and Sub-Zero's plan is basically just to repeat what he did in the comic. He's going to free Cyrax again, and Cyrax will give them an in to shut down all the cybers. And it works. Actually, pretty much goes off without a hitch. Like, despite Frost, Noob Saibot shows up for no reason other than to be a thorn in Scorpion and Sub-Zero's sides.
Yeah,
Sektor tries to stop them too.
We should really talk about how, like,
managed to free Cyrax and do the thing.
Yeah, the Book of Missed Opportunities.
Yeah.
There is no confrontation between Noob Saibot and Sub-Zero that has any kind of gravitas or meaning. This is not even the last time Noob Saibot shows up. He shows up later on in a cave because he's guarding, like, Shang's secret stash.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have rightfully said that as great as it is to have Noob Saibot in the game, period, they didn't seem to have anything for him. He is painfully underused. Like, at least we get... I mean, the thing about the Sub-Zero Scorpion chapter is that in every single fight you can pick which character you want to be and see what the character has to say to them. Noob Saibot doesn't really have as interesting a thing to Scorpion as you wish he would.
Him or Sub-Zero, really.
Yeah, I think, like, you get a little bit with Sub. Like, you get Kuai Liang repeating the "We share blood, we're not brothers." That's nice.
That's it. That's the entire payoff.
It's not as much as you would hope for. Like, for me, like, I'm just glad that Kuai Liang isn't trying to save his brother anymore, that he's finally willing to admit that the guy is bad on purpose, that he's by choice this way.
But it wasn't a focus, right?
No, it needed more.
Again, respectable that there's a little something, but there is no real sense of closure between the two of them.
Yeah. And I think again, it's like, at least Sub-Zero is getting a chapter, but it's kind of weird that he's sharing it. And Scorpion gets another chapter later. So, like, effectively Fire and Ice is Sub-Zero's chapter, and they still made it where you don't have to play as Sub-Zero. That seems funny to me.
And if you pick Scorpion, you get the awesome side effect of Sektor trying to barbecue him, and Scorpion being, haha, I am no effect, man.
I do love that, him just...
It is cool.
Sticking out his chest and taking the flamethrower. Like, I have always wanted to see more scenes where people show that their powers make them immune to this or stronger against that, you know, like... And the devs have talked about, like, Boone talked about how in different games they've thought about those as gameplay mechanics. Like, Kenshi is immune to some stuff in Deadly Alliance because he's blind. Sub-Zero was originally going to be immune to Superman's frost breath in versus DCU, but they figured it would be unbalanced.
Which is fair.
I don't need these as gameplay elements, but I do want to see it happen more often in cutscene. I want to see situations where, like Sub-Zero keeps freezing Frost, and he is more powerful than her, so I can buy it. But I wish we got cutscenes where he throws ice at her, or she throws ice at him, and it has no effect, because fucking cryomancers, man.
Exactly.
So anyway. Yeah, the Scorpion tanking the flamethrower was a personal highlight for me of MK11 story mode.
But again, it's not the preferred version.
Yeah. I think...
Yeah, we pretty much, like, just kind of get, the MKX comic scene retold.
Yeah, it's basically just a redo of the whole situation where Cyrax is freed, and he immediately defaults to wanting to commit suicide, kill himself in the process of pulling the plug on the Cyber Initiative. And then it unfortunately doesn't amount to anything, because in the very next scene, Gearus has taken Sektor's deactivated body to the Black Dragon to reactivate it. And from that point on, Sektor and Frost somehow is the actual leader of the Cyber Lin Kuei. They're all slaved to her. I guess it had to be that way so that they could make Sektor into a bomb. But it seems like if I was Sektor, I would maybe have noticed this and be upset about it.
Time shenanigans, man, who knows? It is very possible that they actually did see Frost as being more reliable and useful than Sektor.
I guess. I mean...
She was untested. Sektor had already fucked up.
Sektor. So I talked about before how when I think of the Cyber Initiative and how they come out of it, like, it bothers me that Sektor has as much personality as he does in 9. I think they should all be clearly under control and only autonomous when they're malfunctioning or when they've broken out of control. Like, Sektor laughing as a taunt, I don't think fits. Because in the old timeline, they were definitely all programmed, and
yeah,
Sektor
he was
was not.
Emotionally, he's not there. He doesn't have a soul. He shouldn't be laughing.
11 does it the way I'd like to see, where Sektor is clearly more robot, not as emotional. He still has some free will, like when he's talking to Sub-Zero about how how dare you work with Scorpion? I didn't know you were capable of such dishonor. That's not a robot response. That's Sektor's originally coming out.
Yeah.
But then after Kano repairs him, he seems pretty much full robot.
Maybe he'll restore some wires, but I'm happy with it.
On one hand, he should have always kind of been that way, and on the other hand, I feel bad for him that he's getting taken advantage of so much.
Kano says, circuitry looks good, but it looks like someone did a software wipe.
Yeah, he could actually have had his brain destroyed by what Cyrax did. I hadn't thought of it that way. Maybe his personality is just unretrievable.
Damn shame.
He's basically already dead.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
I mean, he was dead before. But
was that
was his comeback.
Was this it for Sub-Zero in the game?
No, he shows up again at the beginning of Scorpion's chapter.
Right.
The two of them travel together to get Charon, but then Sub-Zero leaves. And it's a shame that he did, because if he had been there to back him up, Scorpion probably would not have died to fucking Devora.
Right, not that I dislike the fact that Hanzo redeemed himself in his own arms and just, I guess, set his younger self away from the path in the first place.
I mean, if this wasn't a reboot at the end of the game, it would matter. It doesn't matter. That's the problem. We only get to see MK2 Scorpion.
Wouldn't it have actually been nice, though, to actually see him instead in Sub-Zero's arms instead?
Yeah. I think...
I'm not shipping, I swear to God.
I think there would have been more gravitas there.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most of the game after his chapter, Sub-Zero is really just one of many guys who stands around in the crowd when Raiden is talking to them.
Demoted to B-list.
That is the continuous thing. He's not the main character at any point in this fucking timeline.
I'm sorry, man. I know it hurts.
It's fine. It's fine. Like, if he had been a cyborg all 3 games, I'd be a lot more upset.
Oh, I'd have been salty as fuck. And I know...
I might have not been more upset if the trade-off for Sub-Zero staying a cyber had been that Smoke gets to do the thing Sub-Zero did in the old timeline.
I'd have been so happy. You got no...
Like...
You got some idea.
If I got to see, like, the Smoke who does stuff, that would have been a timeline I'd be interested in.
But no one wants that.
That might have granted some kind of fucking merit to 9X and 11, whereas I honestly just see the past 3 games as this waste of time what-if that I kind of wish we had gotten real Mortal Kombat games instead.
Well, I can't put things quite that harshly. Still, they're great games, but story-wise,
gameplay-wise, they're fine. You could have had those same gameplay engines on games that were set after Armageddon.
Anyway.
But it is what it is. Fucking Serena knows Jax, and Cabal's in love with her, but she's never met Kuai Liang. That's fine. That's whatever, man.
Listen, we'll save the wacky world of Cabal for his own episode. And what a world it is. I don't care. They can't ruin him for me. There's nothing to ruin. There's no character. There's no consistency.
You're right. You've compared him before to a duck-billed platypus. And that is definitely an accurate picture of Cabal.
If
the man is the weirdest mishmash of things that don't fit together. And he always has been.
If at this point you had him scooting at high speed backwards into a fight as an intro saying YOLO, I'd accept it. I don't care anymore.
He time traveled from the 90s. Why does he even know the phrase ballin'?
Who doesn't?
Does he realize he's white? Has he looked in the mirror?
You're not as cool as he is, Razor. You don't understand. You're too slow. Alright. Is that it for the night? Do we want to do our favorite costumes and fatalities before we get to...
Yeah, next episode will be about Kuai Liang in media.
The last
but
part.
Since we're done with the games, I think we can do costumes and fatalities.
So, I think that when we did this for Bihan, I said that the spine rip was by far my favorite Sub-Zero fatality in general.
I believe so.
The thing is, though, I consider that to be kind of a Bihan signature move, not so much Kuai Liang.
I do too. Like, whenever I see Kuai Liang do the spine rip, I think of it as him copying his brother.
So I've got to think of a fatality that really speaks to Kuai Liang himself. The signature fatality, or the best fatality of someone who doesn't really get off on murdering people all that much. Could do it. Don't say he can't do it.
I mean, that's the thing, is that Sub-Zero is kind of like Kung Lao in that his fatalities are far more gratuitous than he would ever actually be in killing someone.
I think it's the freeze
Like, the deep freeze and shatter is probably the most in character.
I think that's it for me. I think that's my favorite one.
But my favorite is actually the one from Deception, where he freezes their legs, takes the legs out with a sweep, and the body is sort of crawling along the ground because it doesn't have legs anymore, and it's like, please, no, no, and then he like stomps on their chest and their head pops off. I have this thing where any finishing move where the person tries to crawl away at the end is automatically my favorite thing.
I'm okay with that if the person doing it is a bad person. I don't dig on torture porn generally.
It's just,
I like execution.
I don't get hung up on whether or not the fatalities are canon, except for a few specific instances where it's about, does the person actually have that superpower, like Liu Kang's dragon? Where it's unclear whether or not he actually can turn into a dragon, that bugs me a little. But in terms of, like, Kung Lao trying to make a modern art piece out of your body, like, I don't get bothered by the fact that he wouldn't really do that, and I just try to enjoy the visual.
I have weird lines. It's like, I just want what they're doing to fit their personality.
I get it.
That's all there is to it.
I get it. It's just that fatalities have been a thing for so long. All the good ideas are clearly long past already taken.
You know, we say that, but there's some pretty decent ones in 11. It's just that them being in cinematic form and 10 seconds long makes it a bit harder to watch over and over again.
I mean, some of the best, like, my favorite fatality 11 of any character is probably Johnny's triple uppercut, and the thing is, that's just a reimagining of a thing he's been doing since MK1. Yeah.
You know what? I used to actually hate the shit out of Kung Lao's, the one where he, like, drags you groin first over the hat. Because I was like, what kind of fucking monk would... But you know what? As every successive game, he's more and more of a douchebag, so you know what? I'm okay with it now. This is totally peak Kung Lao.
I mean, this obviously isn't the Kung Lao episode, so I'm not going to get too deep into, like, what my favorite Kung Lao fatality is.
Right.
But I kind of dig the over-the-top brutalness that he would never in character do.
Are we sure we know who that guy is anymore? I don't know.
I mean, it does kind of change every game. he might be a secret psychopath.
Might. Okay, so costumes.
I mean, I already said my favorite is Beard Zero. Like any variation of the MK3 unmasked, I think Beard Zero is the best of them. I think the belts might be a little over the top. I would actually maybe take Deadly Alliance from the neck down and put that head on it.
All right, so in terms of Sub-Zero outfits,
yeah,
when I think of the classic Sub-Zero look, I tend to think more of Bihan as Sub.
Yeah, I think when I think of like my favorite masked outfit, I think of mythologies, and that's Bihan.
Yeah.
Although
right?
Kuai Liang did wear it in 4 to tribute him. That's sort of the first one that I picture in my imagination. If I think about favorite masked Kuai Liang costume has to be the Cryomancer armor. That's the one that's his.
I think that's my general favorite overall. Probably just for Kuai Liang.
Yeah,
When
I think that's what's so frustrating about the fact that it never fucking comes back. Like, his outfits seem to be more based on his Deadly Alliance primary, which I like, although, like, with X and 11, it's more like they've created a whole new outfit that's based on, like, a Marty McFly puffy coat.
You know,
I wonder if they're trying to evoke the squares from Ultimate with the puffy seams thing.
It's possible. You know what I kind of wonder?
It's not to my taste. I would rather have like a smooth cloth tunic over the chest.
I'll take whatever I've got to take to get that Shredder helmet back. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, yeah.
It's a thing of beauty. I would redesign the outfit just a little bit to give it some more detail.
Well, I think from the neck down it does need reworking because it's supposed to be a suit of armor, and there's not really any armor to it. I think I would look at like as an artist, I've been contemplating how I would draw it, and I've looked at a lot of reference material of Chinese suits of armor, and they tend to have this particular scale mail pattern where it's like in the shape of interlocking letter Ys.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely look into something like that for like a full like breastplate. Add that to him. I think that would be a good look. But I definitely want that helmet back.
You know, in future games, I wouldn't
mind...
mind...
And the fur collar, like...
Oh, you'd absolutely keep the fur collar.
Yeah, the fur collar is part of the look. Like, it definitely... The helmet and the collar are the two things.
I wonder how salty Ed gets that, like, Sub-Zero's had 3, maybe 4 undisputable classic outfits. Scorpion? 2. Maybe.
Yeah, I would say there's maybe 2... really good Scorpion outfits.
Somewhere Ed's eyebrows are twitching. But, I also want to give a special little weird shout out. This is by far not my favorite one. But I never hated it as much as some people seem to. The weird Deception alt.
The bald with the ponytail
he's
look?
got the ponytail.
The fucking pajamas?
I give it points for what the fuck originality.
You know what I love about that outfit? The dragon medallion is on it, but it's just a texture on the cloth. It looks like a print on his fucking pajamas. Like he's not actually wearing a physical metal. That is just the laziest.
Okay, though, think about this. If the colors were different... would you accept it as being a different character?
Oh, God. So, I think Goro is the only character who's ever looked good bald with a ponytail. I think that Dairu hair shit is just a bad look. Like, it doesn't work on anybody with 2 arms.
I don't mind it that much. I think it's alright.
I kind of hate it.
You know, like, I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at, like, a fan interpretation of it. I'm squinting. If you just change the colors, it can make a passable NPC.
It could definitely pass as an original character.
It could
It
also
doesn't
be like a
look like
kind of
Sub-Zero, but it could be somebody else. I just don't know if I'd like that guy. I think I'd look at him the way I look at Dairu, where it's like, here's a fat, bald guy with an ugly ponytail.
you could
Like,
maybe
that's
make
always
it
been
into
my problem
like
with Dairu. I don't have any issue with Dairu's story, and the fact that his
No, he
moves
looks-
are like a mishmash of created character moves
He looks like
is
Butt.
kind of obnoxious, but I don't care that much because the engine everybody kind of sucked. The reason I hate Dairu is that he's fucking ugly.
he's a bunch of ideas that just didn't ever come together properly.
I hate his design.
But yeah, looking at this, if you change the colors, it could also actually stand for a passable, I don't know, guard at the walled city of Lei Chen. It doesn't specifically
Yeah, I
speak
could see something like
Sub-Zero.
that.
Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up because no one ever really seems to talk about it. It's
Right, no, we all try to pretend Pajama Zero doesn't exist.
I like talking about Pajama Zero. He's the weird bastard child of all the outfits. It's very strange.
It is very strange.
Alright, so I guess that wraps it up for our current discussion. We are looking
Yeah,
at...
that covers Sub-Zero in the new timeline.
And we are
It
2
took
minutes...
longer than I expected. Like, he's in the game so little that I thought we'd blaze right through it, but...
Dude, this is us. We always have a lot to say about
Yeah.
everyone.
I think we have covered for how little Sub-Zero there is by talking about a bunch of other characters.
Nah, not so much.
I feel like we had quite a few tangents this episode.
So we'll see you next time for part 4 of our Sub-Zero series. The very last bit.
5 episode, yes. It will be a 4-parter total.
The very last bit, we swear to God. We just gotta cover him in media and movies.
Man, I told
and
you
then
he
we're
was
done.
gonna be the longest one.
You were not lying. You were not wrong.
Sub-Zero is in everything. Like, there is no...
All of the things.
There was one game in history that didn't have Sub-Zero in it, and that's Special Fucking Forces.
Yay, Jax. Does this mean Jax gets 4 episodes? He's in a lot of things too.
I kinda doubt it.
Do we do a Special Forces playthrough just for the fans?
I mean, we're gonna have to eventually anyway.
Let's not pretend either you or I remember a lot about that game, apart from the fact that Tremor's in it.
Look, I haven't played Special Forces.
I have.
I have seen Special Forces. I've seen a lot of Special Forces.
You know what?
I've never actually played it.
There's our project, Razor Plays Through Special Forces. Because if I have to suffer, so does everyone else.
I mean, I suppose that I've avoided it for far too long. Like, I must pay my dues as a fan of Mortal Kombat.
Alright, folks. We'll see you next time for Pain and Suffering.
Later.